All right, you're all set, Pete.
Okay, welcome everybody to the Town of Colonie Planning Board. Due to the COVID situation, we've gone back to Zoom, and I think that was a smart move, and I think all the board wanted to do that. The meeting is called to order. Sean, do you mind calling the roll? Because I'm not sure who's here.
Let's see. We have Lou Mayon.
Here.
Steve Hyder.
I'm here.
Chip Ashworth.
Here.
Paul Rosano.
Here.
Susan Milstein.
Here.
Craig Shamlian.
Here.
Peter Studo.
Here.
That's everybody. Also,
Okay.
we got
Thank
Zach in our office and Kathy, our counsel.
Okay. Thank you for that. Can you give us the report of the Planning and Economic Development Director?
Yep, just quick update for everybody. Our office is currently closed to the public due to COVID-19, but the staff is working diligently remotely at home. We've had put some measures into place back in the spring and had a lot of good practice, and we brushed those back off for the fall here. And I believe we have a special meeting scheduled for 12/15 for next week, and then after discussing with the planning board, you guys are going to continue to meet remotely until the situation is resolved and it's safe to bring people back together in person. So we'll maintain this format moving forward. Did you want me to go over how the meeting will run for those that are here for the first time?
Sure.
Okay. What we'll do is that the planning board will be on camera and we'll have their microphones unmuted. There are sometimes we can't control some of the technical issues with the camera, but all the board members are present. During the cases, when the chair opens up public comment, we do have a list of people that had signed up in advance. We'll unmute those individuals as they're called upon by the chair. And then at the end, if we've missed anybody that's registered last minute, I believe that the chair will ask anybody to raise their hand or comment in the chat. If you have any technical problems, please send a message to me in the chat. You can message directly to me or you can message to anybody and we'll try to solve that. As a backup, if you do have problems with audio, you can always call into the meeting using the information in the email you received.
You froze out on me a little bit, but I wanted to mention the letters. I think due to the Zoom, we've received several letters on the projects, people thinking maybe, and because of COVID, maybe they weren't coming. So if people make comment, council's advised that we read the letters into the record, and I think that's a fine idea. Unless council tells me otherwise, if the people are here and the letters have all been circulated and they are part of our record here, and they will be given due consideration in our decision making. But if in discussing this with Sean, if the people actually say something on the project, we're not going to read their letter into the record. And if they don't make comment, then we will. If council tells us otherwise, we'll do something different. Okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. It's going in and out a little bit for me. So she said it's appropriate, right? Okay. We are going to call up the first meeting on the agenda. We do have several items, 4 items on the agenda, specific projects. I'll call up the first one, 33 and 45 Forts Ferry Road, the Summit at Forts Ferry mixed use. The applicant is seeking a 1-year extension of project site plan approval. Sean, before we turn it over to the applicant.
Okay. Yep. So with this project here, their site plan approval has expired. In order for them to continue, they are coming to the board, which is really an administrative matter here, to request a 1-year extension. Zach is the planner on the project. Zach, did you have anything else to add?
No, for right now, they need to really go for the year extension because there is another building that needs to be built, the commercial office building up front, to put them into zoning compliance. That's about it.
And we have nobody from the public that had signed up as of 5:30, I'll say. We had nobody signed up that was interested in providing comment.
Is the applicant here?
I believe Mary Beth Slevin is here. Let me unmute you, Mary Beth.
If she has anything to say.
Good evening, Mary Beth Slevin here. Nothing to add other than we would appreciate the board's consideration for the 1-year extension. As Zach and Sean said, that's really the only issue that we're asking the board to consider this evening.
Okay, I personally have no objection. Does somebody want to make a motion and then we'll discuss it at that point?
Can I just ask a question, Peter?
Absolutely.
Mary Elizabeth, what is the starting and ending date of this extension?
I would believe the starting date would be from when the board authorizes the extension, and then its expiration would be 1 year thereafter.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion then.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any discussion or questions? I didn't think this was a particularly controversial item, so I didn't call everybody. People can just, is there a way to raise your hand, Sean, electronically?
Yep, if you, in the screen, there's a reactions button. If you click any of those, there's a thumbs up or there's a clapping icon. We'll generally recognize those as you raising your hand.
Lou would like to say, Lou, did you want to say something?
Nope, I'm thumbs up.
Oh, okay, got it. I don't hear any board members. I don't want to miss anybody because the audio is not always good. Are there any board members that want to say anything?
Pete, I'm going to recuse myself on this.
Okay.
I just recommend a roll call vote since we're in Zoom.
Okay, sounds good. Why don't you call the roll?
Lou Mayan,
Yes.
Steve Hyder. You're
He's
muted.
muted.
I'll come back to you. Chip Ashworth,
Yes.
Steve Hyder,
Yeah, I'm good.
Paul Rosano,
Yes,
Susan Milstein,
Yes.
Craig Shamlian,
I'm recusing myself.
Peter Studo.
Affirmative, yes.
All right, that's the roll.
Okay,
Thank you for your time.
thank you. Thank you to the applicant. Next item on the agenda, 396 Watervliet Shaker Road, Verizon Wireless Service Facility. The application is for concept acceptance for the construction of a 79-foot tall stealth monopine telecommunication facility.
Peter, I'm refused.
Okay, Lou, thank you. Well, Sean, I'll turn it to you or one of your staff, and then we'll turn it to the applicant.
Yeah, Zach, I'll have you. This has been Zach's case. Would you present that for me?
Yes. So this went back to sketch back in September. And Joe Grasso and myself went out and met with a couple residents out doing a site visit the next week, and just took some pictures of the actual site with the leaf on condition. And then I actually went back out there on early November, right before Thanksgiving. I took a couple pictures with the leaf off condition, and you'll see, I think you guys have them in your actual packets, the actual photos with the leaf off. It is pretty sparse. Went through concept review, not many comments came back. I think the biggest concern that we'll have is the landscaping and possibly shifting that cell tower towards Watervliet Shaker to kind of get it behind taller trees. And you'll see in the photos, there's a little dip in the landscape of where they're proposing it. That's about all I have right now.
Okay, who's here from the applicant to present?
Good evening, Dave Brennan from the law firm of Young Summer on behalf of the applicant, Verizon Wireless.
Please go ahead.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Again, Dave Brennan with the law firm of Young Summer, representing Verizon Wireless on this matter. We propose a 79-foot tall stealth monopine tree to be located at 396 Watervliet Shaker Road, which is a parcel in front of the existing Elks Club facility. It's accessed off of thank you. It's accessed off of the existing emergency access road and typically generates 3 to 4 trips per year once it's constructed. This facility was in front of the zoning board for a lengthy process under Chapter 189 of the town code, which is the telecommunications facility siting process, and we did receive the special use permit from the zoning board in June of this year. And so at this point, we're in front of the board. We did receive sketch plan approval on 9/22, and we're back now for concept acceptance. There's been no significant change in the plans since we were back before the board in September, other than we are proposing to remove the barbed wire off the top of the fence, which we had discussed at that time. We are in receipt of the comments from the various boards and agencies of the town, as well as the TDE, and we're prepared to review those with the board.
Okay, this project is being reviewed by the town designated engineer, which is CHA. Joe Grasso has prepared a letter and has reviewed the project. Joe, can you give us your comments?
Sure thing, Pete. So we issued a letter dated November 16th on the concept application materials. As Zach had mentioned, we had gone out and visited the project site with Zach and representatives from the applicant and landowners from 4 Abadar Lane. So the reason why we went out there was to get a better understanding of the visibility of the tower from the properties on Abadar Lane, as well as areas from within the project site and from the Watervliet Shaker Road corridor. So, you know, when you can see in the application materials, and something that we were able to verify during our site visit, is that the tower location is going to have, you know, varied levels of visual impact when viewed from the surrounding areas. Based on our investigation, we believe that the greatest visual impacts are going to be from the rear yards of 2 Abadar Lane, which is the first house, and 4 Abadar Lane, which is the second house. And these homes have direct sight lines to the proposed tower location. So as a result of that, we had recommended that the tower location be shifted approximately 40 feet to the north. This would reduce the setback from Watervliet Shaker Road from approximately 260 feet to 220 feet. And the ground elevation does go up slightly, so it could actually result in a slightly reduced tower stem height that's required. It's currently proposed at 74 feet, and the ground goes up about 4 feet in elevation as you go to the north, so it may be able to come down a few feet. So we think that shifting of the tower location 40 feet isn't substantial when you look at, you know, the overall property that the tower is going to be located in, but it definitely would take it out of the direct line of sight from those backyards when you look straight from behind each of those 2 residences. So that was the first recommended change for consideration by the board. We did touch on a couple other things that we think would also help mitigate visual impacts. There's an existing clearing behind 4 Abadar Lane. That is the site that we think is most impacted, and we recommend a dense row of, you know, 12-foot high Norway spruces or approved equal, as well as some red maples to you know, would be in a foreground view from 4 Abadar Lane, and you know, within a few years would get to the height where they would obscure views for the cell tower. Another thing that we had recommended was reducing the clearing limits around the tower yard. It is a, you know, sparsely wooded area that the tower is going to be located within, and we would just like to save as many of those existing trees as possible. So we would like to see a restriction on clearing any more than 10 feet from the security fence, which is proposed around the tower yard. And then specifically related to the security fence, we would recommend use of a brown vinyl coated chain link fence with slatting, just so that fencing blends in with the trees as much as possible. So that was our comments regarding the tower site and the visual impacts. There was some discussion at the DC, or not the DCC meeting, but the sketch plan review meeting regarding access to the tower site. The applicant is currently proposing construction and you know, future occasional visits to the site by using the emergency access drive, which comes right off Watervliet Shaker Road. And we had expressed some concerns with that due to limited sight lines, of the emergency access road intersection with the Watervliet Shaker Road. So in talking to the applicant, most of the trips to this tower site are gonna occur, during the construction process. And we continue to feel strongly that we recommend that all construction access to this site be from Elks Lane and not be allowed to use the emergency access road. Once the tower is up and operational, the trips for maintenance and monitoring of the tower by the tower owner is relatively minimal, and I think we're talking about maybe one trip a month or so. And for that low intensity use, we don't have any concern with use of the emergency access road that's there. So the last comment that we had in our letter was regarding the seeker review of the application. A full EAF was included within the application materials. It's an unlisted action, so coordinated review is optional. Involved agencies include the Colonie Planning Board, of course, for site plan review, as well as the Colonie Zoning Board of Appeals for the special usage permit. And it's our understanding that the ZBA has already granted the special uses permit and done seeker as part of that review process. Our recommendation is that the planning board conduct its own seeker review as part of the site plan review process. We've gone through the full EAF and believe it adequately describes the proposed action as well as the environmental setting of the site. But we would recommend that the planning board withhold making a secret determination until its review of the final site plans and see if any other changes to the application are put in place as a result of the planning board's review of the concept application tonight, and any other changes that the applicant may propose. So that's where we are with our review process, Pete.
Okay, Sean, I'm thinking, how many letters did you get on this one, Sean?
Let's see. Zach, do you have that count? We currently have, I'll say, 5 individuals signed up to provide comment, and I'm just doing a count of the letters.
And I'm for purposes of this, I'm more concerned with the neighbors than the other officials, because I know some came in from officials. I'm just trying to do this the most efficient way possible. The neighbors are asking to talk.
We do have 5 people signed up or interested in talking. We did receive.
I want to say we received 4 letters before we left the office.
Yeah, we do have 4 letters. One from a county legislator, one from the county sheriff, and 2 from residents.
Okay. Okay. Well, you want? Okay. We'll call up. We'll let the residents speak. How's that?
Yeah, one of the residents, the Sages, I believe they're here. Yep.
Okay.
And Sage is here.
The members okay with hearing from the residents at this point?
Fine.
Okay. Yeah. Let's call up. Can you read their name?
Yeah, I'm looking first for Frank Bauer. Frank, I'm gonna ask to unmute you.
I am from the Elks, so I'm not a resident.
That's okay. Go ahead, Go ahead, sir.
I have no comment other than the tower was recommended to put there for the simple reason that they had issues prior to that being in a previous location. And we felt that moving it would satisfy everybody. And being in the location of those trees, felt it would hide the tower considerably. And well, that I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Next, I have Michael Bianchino.
Thank you, Sean. Mike Bianchino, 64 Dutch Meadows Drive in town of Colonie. I'm actually speaking on behalf of my daughter, Kristen Ryan. She and her husband, Matt, and their 2 children live at 11 Deborah Drive, which is right across Route 155 from the site. They have experienced some very poor cell service on that site. And during the pandemic, They are both in the education business. My daughter's a teacher in Niskayuna. My son-in-law works as an assistant director at Spotted Zebra, and they do a lot of remote learning. And they have 2 children who are both doing remote learning. They've had some real problems with this during this pandemic with cell service. They've had problems in the past with cell service. The point is, they are both in favor of this project. From their living room, they will be able to see the cell tower, but in their opinion, the improvement to cell service in this area is going to be significantly better than their concern about the visualization of the cell tower. And they asked me to speak on their behalf. Again, their name is Kristen and Matt Ryan, 11 Deborah Drive, Latham 12110. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Who's next, Sean?
Jim Rubino. And I'll ask it on mute. All right, I think you got 2 connections. I'll try the second one. All right, he's having some difficulties. If we could come back, if I'll just ask Jim if you could call into the number that's listed in the Zoom meeting, I think we can resolve that. And Sage. And let me just unmute you. Hold on. Okay, Ann.
Sean, this is Russ Sage. Could you unmute my line and I'll hang?
Yeah.
There we go.
Sorry.
Yeah, it says unmute on the thing.
All right, Russ.
Sorry, guys.
Right.
We're getting some feedback because we had multiple devices going with the meeting code. So under my name, both my mom and obviously myself are present. And thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm the owner of 4 Abadar Lane. My mom, she lives here at the dwelling, and we are here to essentially speak in opposition for it. One question I had, the audio had cut out earlier. Have all the Elks members on the board recused themselves? We missed that part.
Yeah, we have one member who did Lou Mayan recused himself.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay,
So-
just for the record, we're going to take your comment and we'll deal with your questions at the end. It works out more efficient that way.
Okay. All right. Then I'll save
And
the questions. to the
we'll
end.
do our best to answer all your questions.
Okay, thank you. And first off, we'd like to just thank Joe Grasso, Zach Harrison, and Sean McGuire for physically coming out to the property and, seeing the sparse coverage of the trees. We disagree vehemently with the applicant. This is not a tree. This is a tower that's being built. The biggest questions we have, based on Joe's recommendations, especially regarding, say, the trees, or what safeties overall going forward does the town have in place once this structure is built to, I guess, if the applicant wishes to add height to the tower, add nodes to the tower, increase parking, increase the footprint, any appreciable difference to what's being presented to you tonight going forward, any of those changes, are there safeties in place that those changes are going to be reviewed by the planning board and a method for public comment on those? Or is this a one and done, and once this tower's built that, sky's the limit, say 5 years from now? That's one concern.
Okay, I'll get that one right out of the way.
Okay.
Tonight is concept. If they get their concept approval, they come back again for final. So just so you know that, and that meeting will be noticed and a vote will be taken. If they change their project, they have to come in, and the process, it's the same process. and it would be an amendment to their site plan. So there will be public notice, public meetings, and public comment, if that were to happen.
And just to clarify that, if that were to happen in this forum regarding this application, I'm saying 5 years from now.
Yes, in 5 years, unless the laws all change in 5 years.
Okay. Okay. Oh, I appreciate that clarification. The other thing we would request, along with the aesthetic buffer with the proposed planting of trees, is what safeties are in play. I guess this is a question, but what safeties could there be imposed that, those trees are tied to that tower, meaning somebody's not going to come and say, oh, we'd like to put a parking lot here or something along those lines. Or if the town knows of a proposed second field center that's going to be going up, if the Elks sell their property, which they've been indicating that they may do, what protects that aesthetic buffer from being altered?
Okay, that's a fair question. I think we probably should. Can you put a map up, Sean, or no? Or at least something to look at.
Yeah,
that is relevant to the buffer. Joe Grasso, can you
Sure.
handle that question?
Sure. So it's a great question. So if any landscaping is included in the site plan application as mitigation, then it becomes a requirement of the site plan application. And when the tower gets built before a certificate of use is granted by the town, they're going to make sure all the conditions of the site plan, including any, required landscaping, has been installed. As long as that tower is there operating under this site plan approval, that landscaping needs to be there. So they do always have the right to come back and seek a site plan amendment. If there's another use on the site and the landscaping is impacted, there's a review process that the planning board would go through, which would also include notification of the neighbors and additional public comment. But the applicant will not have the right to remove the landscaping at any point in the future without the planning board's approval. And if the plants die at any point in the future, which does sometimes happen, then it'll be required of the applicant to reinstall the landscaping as originally proposed, and that'll be enforced by the town of Colonie.
Okay, I guess my other comment would be, if I'm not so concerned with Verizon coming and cutting down a tree, but what if the Elks or any new property owner decide, I don't know if the town is entertaining a second field center or not, if there's any information on that, but with the development of this property, which is never ending, the applicant knows that trees were planted as an aesthetic buffer, but what about any new property owner? Is there any safeties that can be put in place?
Let me ask a question, Russell. Are all the plantings on the leasehold of Verizon?
No.
I'm asking him, Joe Grasso.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
No, the area that we had recommended landscaping was outside of the lease parcel, but I think it's important to understand that the site plan application is for the parcel. The site plan application is not just limited to the lease parcel. It's for the entire project site.
So that project site.
He's asking a fair question. In theory, the remainder of the Elks parcel, if the plantings are on there, in theory, somebody could come in, make an application, and it's an interesting question. And is there a potential for the planning board changing the, if they wanted to build something there? I don't know if it's buildable on that spot. Sean, can somebody help me? It's actually a valid question.
What I would say is that if the owner ended up, taking down any of those trees that are proposed to go there, calling the planning department, because it's going to be a site plan approval and those trees will be part of that site plan approval, we can, have remediation to make sure that gets fixed. That's the best.
Yeah. The Elks is in agreement, right, to the plantings on their property? Am I correct about that?
I think we're going to have to wait for Dave on that answer.
Is the Elks fellow, yeah, okay. Can Dave
Sure.
answer?
We have to get approval. We don't have a lease for outside of the 100 by 100, so we'll have to respond to those comments and deal with the Elks as to the viability of that. I'm not even sure exactly at this point if we were. I'm sorry, you just took the screenshot down, but where exactly the proposal is to put the plantings. If we could blow up to a different sheet that shows the entire property, it might help Mr. Sage and others to understand what's being proposed. If Joe or Zach could explain where the planting is proposed.
Yeah, so this is Joe, the area that we were talking about. If you go back to the last exhibit that was just on the screen, it showed the wood line.
The other way.
There was another one that
It was
you
like
clicked
probably
on.
like sheet.
That right there. Hold right here. Okay, so you can see there's a opening in the woods there to the west of the lease area of the tower site, all the way over to the west property line to the left hand side of the page. So it's that's the property line, but it's that open area within the project site that we are recommending additional landscaping, including some evergreen trees, because most of the trees that you see, within this wooded area are deciduous and provide, limited screening, during the leaf off conditions. So that exact area is where we're talking about adding, recommending additional landscaping.
Okay, we're only a concept now. As I'll just express myself on that. That is a very important element to the approval of this project for me. So I think we need a way to nail that down, so that the concerns of Mr. Sage are met, that they become permanent, and that the Elks agree to it.
So Joe, what is the nature of that area right there that's circled in red right now?
Sean, I actually have a picture of it from, I think it's November 23rd, and it's in our file.
But it's a wooded. How would you characterize it? Okay.
I would consider it like a meadow condition. It's not a lawn condition. It's it's a meadow condition, and it slowly transitions into some brush and then the deciduous trees. There's a lot of vines in that area. There you go.
Couldn't they add, when we get to this, or when they get to this point, couldn't they add a deed restriction to that area, a no cut deed restriction?
They could, Craig. From my perspective, understanding that we're outside of the lease area and on the Elks property, that may come under additional development. A deed restriction becomes rather restrictive. And again, I don't know what the Elks plans for the property are, but once we deed restrict the area, then it provides that a permanent restriction. And I think there could be other forms of mitigation that may be required at some point in the future. For example, the tower may not be there indefinitely, and that restriction could theoretically be there forever.
Well, couldn't you tie the deed restriction to the existence of the tower? Conceivably, I'm just.
We do with, in terms of on minor projects, when we do a site plan approval, where they remove vegetation that's a condition of the site plan, we do go after them. So if there were a condition the planning board placed on this site plan approval that required, Norway spruce here, and at some point, or let's say it required 3 Norway spruce staggered, and one of them, came down, we would go back to them and require them to plant and to restore that site to the approved condition.
But that's usually on their own property, right, Sean?
Yeah, I think that they, Dave Brennan and the folks would have to figure out with the Elks how they'll accomplish that, whether they expand their lease line or, there's some agreement to how that's maintained.
Yeah,
okay,
and
that's going to be an important point. I think that's an important point to Craig, and it's an important point to me. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and Pete, and if I could just add on to that, I kind of equate this the comment and the concern about like the Donna Drive subdivision, which is, you know, very different because that's a residential subdivision where those lots are being, you know, transferred to residential property owners. You know, this is a commercial site plan application, no different than any other commercial site plan. And, you know,
Right, but the Elks are selling this property or leasing this property, so they're part of the transaction. So I don't think we need to get stuck on this. It's an important issue for me to legally bind that upon the Elks. Verizon's got to figure out how to do it. And
I guess I'd like to understand, it looks like it's grass in that area. What is it? Is it their backyard or is it the Elks Club property?
No, this is the Elks Club property. This is this everything within this picture is off of or on the Elks Club property.
Yeah, I'm standing on the back parcel, like the back parcel line of 4 Abadar in this photo.
So, okay, it just looks to me like it's been maintained as lawn by the property owner.
No, I think there's a distinct line at their rear property line where you go from a you know, landscape, you know, mode area to this hillside. You know, the grade basically changes there where it starts to slope up from the property line.
Okay, we'll have to figure something out. It's just, I guess on behalf of Verizon, if the property owners have chopped down all the trees on the Elks property, it's a, you know, it's a bit of an issue if they're creating this as lawn in the backyards and have opened it up to see off-site. But obviously it's an important comment to the board, and we'll have to work through something to address it.
Yeah, I couldn't see any evidence of that, of you know, recent clearing or maintenance by the adjacent property owners onto the Elks property, but it's definitely a clear, you know, an area that's open, and that's why we thought that it was appropriate to, you know, plant landscaping there because it has a higher likelihood of success than being, you know, adding landscaping, you know, within the other treat areas of the site. So
I do want to comment to Dave, which is cell towers are not always welcomed in residential areas, and you are abutting one. And I hope you know, you and your client can appreciate that we would like to accommodate the neighbors. I think that I'm speaking for myself as the chairman. I don't speak for all the board members, but I just wanted to convey that, and I do appreciate your help.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Studo, for the record, it's Russ Sage here.
Hi.
We can't speak for the former owners, but since 2011, since we've owned this property, we have not touched that clearing.
Okay, sounds
good.
So
as far as trees or whatnot,
that's a fair statement.
You know, the house has been here since the 50s, so whatever happened prior to that, who knows?
No, I appreciate that additional information. I'm looking at the aerial photo, and it looks like it's a cleared area behind the homes. And you know, when I sell this to Verizon Wireless, I need to explain to them the history of this, and if it was cleared, so there's more backyard, and now people are upset that they can see past where there used to be trees. But if it was that way forever, I can appreciate that. I'll take a ride out and take a look at it, and we'll work through something to accommodate and address the comment, which obviously is near and dear to everyone's heart, and message received to the chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Sage, do you have anything else?
Just bear with me one moment. I think my mom has something to say.
Studo, this is Ann Sage.
Hi, Mr. Sage. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good, great, thank you.
I really am not sure how these processes work. On the agenda, there's a concept site plan document, and I was reading the documents off the agenda, and one of the documents talks about Verizon maintains, according to the American Standard Nursery Stock Association standards, they maintain the installed plant materials once it's done. And what does that mean? Do they water new plants, or how do we keep these new beautiful plants alive once they get installed, or who is that? up to the
Well,
applicant
I'll
to
get that
do?
question. I'll get that. Yeah, I'll get that question answered for you. We happen to have a person here with landscape architecture background. Joe Grasso, can you help answer that question?
Yeah, Ann, the applicant will be required to maintain it typically through like a 1-year warranty period. And then after that, we don't expect that there to be significant, maintenance required of the type of landscaping that we would propose to be established there. So as long as it's, installed properly and maintained properly through that grow-in period, there shouldn't be the need for, routine, pruning or watering, fertilization, in the future.
Thank you. One of the other documents talked about utilizing Elks Lane to bring the materials up to the cell tower site, and that the Elks had to approve that. If I understood it correctly, has the Elks approved the use of Elks Lane for the access of the cell tower site construction area? Specifically, I'm thinking about heavy construction equipment hauling steel, cell tower steel up the hill, back and forth, however many times to get the 79 feet of steel up on the hill, going by the Thiel Center, whatever time of early morning to late evening, however they work it, hopefully not during the night. I've read some articles where they say they bring a cell tower company will bring in cranes with huge floodlights and maintenance is done at night. So I'm hoping that for the planning board to consider in these concepts, noise pollution and just morning, what's the start time and the stop time for construction, and saying no to any nighttime work on the site for the sake of the neighborhood, of everybody here.
Yeah, okay, let me try to answer this part of your question, but let me ask you your concern. What route are you concerned about that they're going to do besides Elk Lane? I don't think anybody's contemplating going down Abadar. I'm not sure exactly what your concern is.
No. I'm not talking about Abadar. I'm talking about Elks Lane and having heavy construction equipment,
Right, but you
flatbeds,
don't have any objection.
hauling the steel up the hill past the egress and access to the Thiel Center, possibly blocking the road for the people at the Thiel Center with this heavy equipment on it. For the planning board to consider, if Elks Lane is used as an access point to the cell tower construction site, that limitations or restrictions are put on time of day and how much equipment, or to the size, all the construction parameters that go into a project of this size and magnitude.
Oh, okay. I'll let one of the professionals out there address it.
Thank you.
I share your concerns, and I think we'll be able to remedy that. I don't know if the applicant wants to help us or the town designated engineer.
Sure. I can start with the construction of the cell tower will be a significantly smaller endeavor than the construction of the Thiel project, both in scope and length. We are not proposing to do any work at night. Probably what you read on the internet is if it's an existing site that they have to power down, they may do that in the dark of night at midnight when the traffic on the tower is as low as possible, if they have to switch something off and do repairs. But for the construction of this tower, it would be during regular business hours, construction hours of 7 to 4 or 8 to 5 or whatever the normal construction period is. They basically will be bringing, after a little bit of grading and excavating, concrete trucks up to pour a foundation. And then I would expect on a monopole of this nature, it probably comes in two pieces, a base piece of about 49 feet and then a secondary piece that just sits on top of it and is bolted on. So it's not a lot of steel that goes back and forth up and down Elks Lane. It's it's one or two tractor trailers bringing this in and staging it.
Zach, is there a note? Can we get a note on the drawings that are eventually going to be approved?
Yeah.
About the restriction of the construction hours?
Yeah, and it's actually in our town code. The town code says for any commercial properties or residential properties, there's a certain level of noise that you can't make between from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. So between those hours, you're not allowed to make, I think it's 65 decibels or higher.
You can't hear more than a
Okay, cool.
conversation from the residential property during those hours.
Okay, and she's also concerned about the floodlights. It sounds like we can restrict the construction hours in some reasonable fashion.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I see no
Okay.
reason why we would try to work in the dark.
Chairman Studo,
Okay.
this is Ann Sage again.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to
Yes.
request that the board restrict the applicant from any access during the night when the cell tower is less operating, in its less operable mode. Because when you bring in the cell tower crews, there's going to be talk, shouting back and forth to get a wrench or get this or get that. If they could do their maintenance not during the middle of the night and just keep people away from the tower during the night. I really don't want a bunch of guys over just east of my backyard at midnight. So, and I think it would be to the benefit of the neighbors, the Thiel Center, just to not have crews coming in at night.
If I could make a comment.
What happens here, like early morning, when the waste is being picked up, it's before 7 a.m. And the trucks they make noise when they haul
okay, ma'am. Let me see if I can
And
get that addressed. Let me see if I can.
Just that code is being violated because it wakes you up because of the noise of the equipment hauling the trash. So
Peter, can I make a
Yes, Steve, please.
Yeah, from an emergency management standpoint, it's no different than Niagara Mohawk or National Grid when they have to do emergency repairs in the middle of the night. I doubt Verizon will be doing routine repairs in the middle of the night, but it may come a time where, who knows, that cell tower could go down. It could be necessitate an emergency repair in the middle of the night. And I don't think you want to restrict that. No more than we restrict National Grid or Verizon from putting up a pole in the middle of the night when it's taken down in a car accident.
Okay, that's a good point. Maybe Dave can assuage some of the concerns of the neighbor. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I will say this. We are routinely going through, and we have many facilities in the town of Colonie, and routinely upgrade them. And I've never heard that we've done it at night, nor have I under the impression that the town has received any complaints. It would be a significantly rare occurrence that we would do anything at night. At best, I could see if someone went in a pickup truck and looked at the base equipment, but the idea that they're going to bring in a man lift, Verizon doesn't have that on hand to do that without some notice. And it's just, I don't see it happening at all. I can appreciate the comment though. I'm sure at some location, because of necessity, they had to do some upgrades in the middle of the night, but I've never heard that happening in upstate New York or in the town of Colonie. So I really don't think that would happen. I certainly appreciate Member Hyder's comment that it is a public utility and akin to National Grid and the telephone company, that if there was an emergency, the larger community would want the service restored as promptly as possible. And but again, that's not something that happens even on a yearly basis. It's extremely unlikely.
Okay.
Chairman Studo,
Yeah.
I'm not talking about an emergency. I'm not talking about public safety. I agree. I wouldn't want to see any public safety issue arise because I had to sleep. However, I would like to see restrictions put on non-public safety access during the middle of the night. Something written up to just keep this heavy equipment out of the single family residential neighborhood. It would be beneficial to us all, especially if the Elks, they've indicated that they're going to sell in their newsletters in that March of 2020, April, and then all of a sudden there's no activity about selling. And that's, I don't know what their intentions are. At first, rumors were that they were going to move, and these rumors come from the residents at the Thiel Center. Whatever is going to happen here, I think it would be a benefit to keep the heavy construction traffic out of whatever the new project will be once the Elks make a decision of on their future. So thank
Sure.
you.
If I could
Thank
take
you
one
very
last,
much.
ma'am, if I could take one last crack at responding. Once the tower is up, in my mind, there's no heavy equipment to speak of. That is at 79 feet tall. Once the structure is constructed, basically the only reason that someone goes up in that tower would be to repair or replace an antenna or other piece of equipment up there. And there is, as Mr. Grasso had pointed out, there's an open area inside the fence around the tower. And basically it's done with man lifts. So they would rent a man lift and bring it in and go up in a man lift, or, a small bucket truck to go up and do whatever work they want. So there is no heavy equipment to speak of after the facility is already built. And again, I don't see it working in the dark on something like this is not something that they would have as a first choice to just do it in the middle of the night. So I just don't see it happening. I've never heard of that going on in upstate New York. And I don't think based upon the network in Colonie, that would be something that would happen. And if it does, it would be an emergency.
And can you hear me?
Yeah, is that Mrs. Sage?
Yeah, no, it's Kathleen Marinelli.
Oh, hi, Kathy. Yes.
Yeah, I understand Mrs. Sage's concerns, but I don't know that we would impose nor need to impose any restrictions other than an emergency condition than are already existing in our code with respect to any other business facility. So I do understand the concerns, but I don't see the need for us to make special limitations in this situation other than, maybe an emergency situation, which really isn't a limitation. It would be an exception to the code requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Studo, this is my Russ Sage, one last thing. In piggybacking off, I keep hearing emergency. Is this project still, it's not going to have an emergency generator or anything? Is that still correct?
Mr. Sage, yes, that is still correct. No emergency generator is proposed.
And so going forward, just with my initial comment, if you guys want to strap some sort of jet engine on this thing and create power down the road, is that something that would have to go in front of the planning board, or is that at the discretion of the applicant?
Sure. If I could, I know Mr. Studo addressed that earlier, but I'll add a little bit more to that, which is Chapter 189, which is the telecommunications facility provision, is very explicit in the language. It says any change, modification, except for routine maintenance, it requires a trip back to the zoning board for amendment of the special permit. And then on top of that, at the zoning board, if they were to approve it, then it has to go probably for some sort of minor site plan amendment back to the planning board. But we're not proposing a generator, and certainly going back and forth with Verizon several times to confirm that. And so I know there is a generator back in the back corner of the Thiel Center, but they are remarkably quiet nowadays. We have one that's 20 feet from our office windows where my office is in off of Everett Road, and we've never heard the thing run. But beyond that, we're not proposing one here anyway. And if we were to change that, we would certainly come back in.
Okay, I don't disagree with anything that he said. So, is Mrs. Sage? Do you have any more comments, Mrs. Sage?
I still stand by. I would not like, if there's a new senior facility up here, along with in combination with the residents in the single family homes, I would like not to have I'd like to have restrictions on nighttime work. So I'm not talking in the event.
Okay,
of
we'll take that into consideration. You've made your point. We've all heard it.
The public emergency, I'm not talking against. I would want the cell tower up and running in the event of an emergency, but not at nighttime at the discretion of the applicant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sean, Can you call up the next person, Sean? I had the list but I was looking at other things on my iPad.
Yeah, we had Jim Rubino, who we had problems connecting with before. I think he's just coming back to his device. Mr. Rubino?
Does he look like he's still connected?
Yep, I see him. All right.
Is there anybody else on this project besides him?
He's the last one.
Okay, well, let's hear from the board, and if he can make a connection, we'll hear from him.
Can I circle back just one? Dave Brennan speaking. Mr. Rubino is a representative of the Elks, and so I expect he's my main contact there. So I expect he's in favor of this. If there's something in addition, if he can't connect back on, we'll certainly convey that to the planning department.
Okay, got it. Chief, do you have anything to say?
No, I refer to Craig Apple, the sheriff's letter, the need for this on an emergency basis. People are increasingly relying upon self-service on cell phones. One problem that PD always had was that people who had cell phones did away with their landlines and expected the cell phones to work as well as a landline. To do that, you need towers. It's unfortunate that they have to be placed sometimes like this, but the emergency operations of emergency management, they just need towers at this point. And I think if we do everything we can do to obscure this site, change the site, make it look as pretty as a duck as you can make it, I think that's what we got to do.
Okay, you're reminding me that I think we got a letter from the sheriff. And are there letters? Are we in receipt of letters from people we have not heard from, Sean?
I believe we have one letter here. I'm just drilling down to we do have one letter, and I have a hand up here from Michael Stapleton, who I think joined us late, and I don't have him on the sign-up sheet.
Okay, let's let Mr.
Email that was sent
Why
to
don't you
me.
check out the letters and we'll let Mr. Stapleton make his comment. Okay.
First, ask if you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. My name is Michael Stapleton. I live at 12 Starlight Road in Latham, which is up by the Goodrich School. I understand from being on and listening to zoning board and planning boards that this is it is a done deal, so to speak. And I do want to thank those people involved in making sure that the trees and things are going to be put in. I had a comment on, in looking at one of the diagrams, one of the plans, it looked to me like there was an ability to add another tower to the site. In looking at the one of the ones you just had up, I believe, it said future expansion or something to the right of what was there. I do now understand that that would have to go back before ZBA and planning board as well. And I appreciate that.
Correct.
Like I said, I'm not really in favor of the cell tower being there. And I'm glad also that the pictures were taken when there were no leaves on the trees, because that does make a big difference in this neck of the woods. So I will yield the rest of my time, as they say.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Studo, one quick comment is
Sure.
what Mr. Stapleton was referring to is there is room in the equipment compound for one additional carrier. So the tower itself is designed and has room for a set of antennas below Verizon's, and there's room within the proposed fence for an additional carrier, so that if AT&T or T-Mobile come along and can use this site, there is room, and it's prepared for their use. That being said, I stand by my prior comments on Chapter 189 requiring a process for even to add additional carriers. There is not, he spoke to an additional tower. There's not an additional vertical structure proposed akin to another tree or 80-foot structure. I just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
And so I do have
back to letters.
one letter here. This is from Roy Marsh. We received it on Monday, the 30th, to the town of Colonie Planning.
Yeah.
My name is Roy Marsh, and my wife and I live at 2 Abadar Lane, which has been identified as the closest residence to the proposed cell tower. We apologize, but we will be unable to attend the planning board meeting scheduled for December 1. My wife and I have lived in our current residence for the past 25 years. One of the major points in choosing to purchase this particular residence was knowing that the property behind us was zoned single-family residence, and we would never have to be part of the discussion we're having today. As always, you can never say never. This change started with the building of the senior housing behind the Elks Club. The original plan that was for the cell tower to be built behind the senior housing to minimize the impact on the longtime residents of the neighborhood. But last year, when all of the residents of the senior housing showed up en masse to the planning board meeting to complain, and lo and behold, the project suddenly had to be moved for various reasons. It's a shame that these new resident voices have more of an impact on the decision of longtime town residents. Now the cell tower is going to be built less than 100 yards from my house. Not the property line, but my house. When this issue was brought up to the town zoning board, I asked each of them if any of them would be in favor of voting in favor of the variance if the tower was going to be in their backyard. I got no answers. I asked the members of the planning board the same question. I'm sure in typical politician speak, it's okay for you, but not for me. Also at the meetings, we have seen plenty of pictures of the proposed site taken during the spring and summer or early fall, all with lots of green pictures. We tried to tell everyone that a lot of pine trees in the area were diseased and dying, but not green. Were diseased and dying and not green, but covered by vines. I was told I was wrong. And Attorney Brennan also had the audacity to blame me for the view because in agreement with the Elks Club, we had 4 trees removed that were on Elks Club property that were mostly dead and dangerously hanging over my property. The club and I split the cost of the tree removal. I'm attaching 2 current pictures of this view I will have for 6 months of every year looking at a cell tower and a monopine that can't possibly be hidden by this view of dead pine trees. In his letter to the planning board in October of this year, Attorney Brennan states under the section of environmental impact, quote, there will be no impact of the 396 Watervliet Shaker Road property or on any adjoining properties, end quote. They also give a definition of a monopine, quote, a quote, monopine is a mono telecommunications facility that is camouflaged as a tree to blend the facility in with normal surroundings. There is an existing tree canopy near and around the proposed facility. If they try to, end quote, if they try to make the monopine look like dead pine trees, they might get it to fit in with the environment. I also brought up the fact that having this tower so close to my residence could negatively impact my property value up to 20%. I'm sure nobody has an answer to help me here. I thank you for your time. Roy Marsh, 2 Abadar Lane, Latham, New York, 12110, and he provides his cell phone number.
Okay, thank you. Do you have the sheriff's letter with you?
I do.
Oh, well, let me ask Kathleen. Can we just summarize the sheriff's letter, Kathleen? You don't want it?
That's a great idea.
Okay.
I have no objection.
To summarize?
I have no objection to summarizing it.
Okay. Okay.
All right. On dated November 27th, 2020, Sheriff Craig Abel does write, and in closing says, I urge the Town of Colonie Planning Board to work with Cellco/Verizon to allow all of Colonie to have reliable cell service, and documents the reasons for his support in the letter.
Okay, that's good. And we all have it we all have copies and it's part of the record.
We do have one more letter. Do you want me to summarize that one as well?
Is it in favor?
It's in favor.
Who's it from?
It's from Paul Bergdorf
from
District 23 of the county legislature.
Are you okay if we just say we got that letter and it's in favor, Mr. Brennan?
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure, as you said, you've sent it to the board, and that's good with me. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's it.
Okay, we'll take board comments. Thank you. That was excellent. Lou, do you have any comments?
He recused himself, Peter.
Oh, I forgot. Sorry. Chip?
No comments.
Paul?
I just want to be on the record, as always, public safety is my #1 focus. I've been around that area. Our police cars, our EMS, they all have tablets in their cars. Drop calls, one drop call could be somebody seriously injured or die. Can't go against public safety. I'm sorry. I'm all for the project.
Okay. Susan?
Okay. I just want to make sure that that the land is protected. That's very important in the view. And if it can't be satisfactorily taken care of, then I would say it needs to be moved to another location. So I'm very concerned about the adequate protection of the screening.
Okay, thank you. Craig?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this screening is critically important here. Is there a reason why the branches on the tower can't come down lower? I mean, I've seen pictures on on the internet of where, well, maybe how far down do the branches come? Let's start, or how high up do they start?
Sure, Dave Brennan speaking. I'm just looking that up. They start right at the top. There was one comment that someone had asked me about at one point. The branches do go 360 degrees around the tower. There is a branching density that is somewhere in the area of 2.5 branches per linear foot, so it's fairly thick. And then the branches are shown as going
I think it's showing 40 feet.
40 feet, 40 feet
in
exactly.
depth,
Yeah,
yeah.
Joe's quicker with the plans than I
Yeah.
am, but it's 40 feet from the top. So basically it's 79 feet at the top, so it's 40 feet from the base.
Okay.
Is the so there's 40 feet of what would be the steel. Typically we can clad these in a synthetic or a fake bark to make it look like bark, and that's
Okay.
what's proposed.
All right. I guess, Joe, would it be better if the branches went lower, and is it technically possible for the branches to go lower? And I'm not necessarily looking for an answer now, but as we move forward, if it moves forward, is that just something that we can take a look at? Is it going to make the view shed better if the branches are lower?
Craig, I would think that it would be minimal lower. I mean, I do think that the stem may be visible, but a question that I would have for Dave is, do you know the color of the stem? Is it like a russet brown or a dark gray or something that would look more like a tree trunk?
Sure. We typically paint them brown, or we put a faux bark around them. I can send a picture of what that bark looks like, but it's a dark brown that approximates or looks like a traditional bark on a pine tree.
So so Craig, that's what I would support.
Okay. All right.
I don't know how practical it is to bring those branches lower down the stem, but I think, if as long as the stem is a dark brown or bark looking, look
All
to
right.
it. I think
That's
that's
all I've
fine.
got.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, my only comment is the landscaping in the view is very important to me, and hopefully we can lock that in with some kind of permanency on the elk side as well. That's my only comment. Any further comments from the board? Okay.
Peter, just one thing. I had some pictures I submitted to Zach.
Yeah.
Similar thing. I don't know if we've got that in the file at all.
Sean, in the file, I think it's going to be under the board file. You'll see some photos, some JPEGs. Not these ones. They're going to be, there you go.
Oh my. So that is the worst example of a stealth tree in the Capital District. It's located in the town of Half Moon, across the street from the Salty's Pub.
That is right.
That the town of Half Moon in the last year allowed that to be extended. I think it was about 15 feet. You can see the light green antennas at the top of it that they did not even attempt to put inside the branching. And I That was not Verizon that did that extension. It was another carrier. And I expressed in passing to the director of planning in the town of Half Moon that he was making my life difficult by building that or allowing that to be built, because that is a poor example of what these look like. And I have some more current photos of one that we built in the town of Clifton Park 2 years ago that I'd be happy to share with the board to give you a more current example of what one of these looks like.
I think that would be excellent. If you could circulate that, that'd be great.
Absolutely. And I think I have some nice close-ups of what the bark looks like on one of these two. I'll include those for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I apologize for that. That is a poor example, and I was disappointed when they extended that one. That does not look good.
Is there any other comments from the board members? Do we have a motion for concept acceptance subject to all the things we discussed this evening?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, I'm not sure who's keeping the record. Paul, I think Paul made the motion and Chief Hyder seconded it. Do we have any discussion? Can we have a roll call?
Let's see. Lou Mayon's recused. Steve Hyder.
Yes.
Chip Ashworth.
Yes.
Paul Rosano.
Yes.
Susan Milstein.
Yes.
Craig Shamlian.
Yes.
Peter Studo.
Yes.
All in favor.
Okay, the motion is passed.
Thank you for all your time and attention, and thank you for the other comments from the neighborhood. Thank you. Good night.
We will call up the next item on the agenda. 925 Watervliet Shaker Road, Capital BOCES. We are here to consider the final review to construct two buildings totaling 206,000 square feet, a 165,000 square foot career and technical education center, and a 41,000 square foot Maywood Special Education School with 510 parking spaces. I'll turn it over to the department for any initial comments before we turn it over to the applicant.
Monique is the planner on this project. Monique, do you want to introduce?
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Hello, Monique. Yes.
Okay, good. Yes, the square footages are a little bit off. It's 167,000 square foot for the Career and Technical Education Center and 43,000 for the Maywood Special Education School. This project is getting state funding, so the applicant has been working very diligently with staff to address all issues to meet their timelines to make sure these education buildings comply with all town standards and can also meet their deadline for funding. I really don't have anything further to say about the project. I think the engineer can describe it better. I just wanted to note to Sean to please let Joe Dragone in. He registered, but he doesn't seem to be able to get back in to speak.
All right. We're
okay. Thank you. Who's speaking for the applicant?
Dan Hirschberg from Hirschberg.
Oh, okay. Is Dan on?
He is. Let me Dan, I'm just asking you to try to mute.
Now you can hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Daniel Hirschberg from Hirschberg and Hirschberg, here representing the applicant, who's Rossetti Acquisitions LLC. They own the property. As we discussed before, for seeker purposes, we analyzed a larger property, which we call the master plan. This approval only applies to the BOCES site, which is a 15.65 acres.
I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second, Dan. We do enjoy your countenance, but perhaps should we have a okay. Go ahead, Dan. We'll let Sean work on that.
Okay. The site is 15.65 acres. It's left 40.5% green. We have adjusted a number of items on the plan since the last time I was here, primarily things like the route of the water main through the site, to provide hydrants closer to the water main, to provide water hydrants at proper locations requested by fire protection people. We also modified the stormwater management plan to split it up to a couple of different basins. We provided for a potential water connection, and the water connection has two provisos to it. If in fact the Shaker West property proceeds and a water main is put up to the point where we can connect to it, we will have a loop system. If not, the applicant will extend the water main through the Shaker apartment area and get it over to Afram's site. So that was one change that was made. The access road, we added a row of trees along that. We added some significant island landscaping.
Let me ask Sean. Sean, are you having trouble?
I am. I'm just looking. I'll be pulling a plan up in a moment.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. Go ahead, Dan.
I did have a PowerPoint here, but I don't know whether or not that's accessible.
Dan, did you send that? Did we get that ahead of time? I don't see it in the file, so I don't know if Monique had it or if Zach had it.
Yeah, Sean, we should have had it. It should be in the board file.
Yeah, it actually has the December 1st date on it, but it was made, it's the same. This is to speak about today.
Yeah, I don't have it in here. Dan, I can have you share your screen if you want to present it that way.
Hold on, let me see if I can find it. I'll forward it to you.
All right. I know I sent it to Zach. It came through a Dropbox.
Does the board want Dan to keep speaking while they're looking? I have no objection to that.
I have a pretty good memory of what's on it, so I'll proceed and then we can backtrack to show you what we actually did on the site.
Okay.
There were comments made by Albany County regarding the drainage that occurs down next to Waterloo Shaker Road. We addressed that item. We added a small stormwater protection basin down near Waterloo Shaker Road. We diverted the drainage from the roadway to that. This roadway is a private roadway built entirely within the parcel that's BOCES is going to occupy. The sewer is technically a sewer lateral. It only has one building on it right now, the BOCES building. At the point where Rossetti wants to make use of the balance of that site and connect additional sewer laterals to it, will become a public sewer. It's designed to meet all the public sewer standards. We did a sewer report that would be suitable for it to become a public sewer extension. But we don't, I think Pure Waters agrees with us. It doesn't have to be done now because we'll only have a single building on it. From a time standpoint, that saves us some time there. Latham Water District has reviewed the plans, and I think we made all the latest changes they asked for. We also, in conjunction with this, we also have a subdivision map, a commercial subdivision map. And we submitted that and got comments back from various departments on that. And I think all those are addressed, the latest transmission that was sent on. As a matter of fact, some departments received response to their comments as late as 3 o'clock this afternoon. So we worked right up to the end. So again, we think that the buildings are attractive. We think that they had modified elevation views previously in response to comments. And we gave a detailed view of that's the plan. Oh, here we go. This is part of my PowerPoint presentation. And this shows the 3-story main building, the BOCES building there, and that's a CME building. And that's the view from the parking lot. Again, we also provided elevation views that called out materials of construction and had all the materials of construction on it. As a matter of fact, I think there might be a slide in here, but it's quite difficult to read. And this is the Maywood Education Facility, the 2-story building on the opposite side of the parking lot. The parking lot has 510 parking spaces laid out on it. Oh, okay. Well, the next slide, I think, has the materials of construction, but they're very small to read, but they're primarily metal panels. Most of those different colors are different colors of metal panels, fascia panels that are used. They're attractive. And the roof drain edge is shown there. That blue item on the right-hand side is an accent color. We think it appears like it shows in the elevation, and those colors would represent the colors that are shown in that elevation. Sean, if you can back up a little bit in the PowerPoint, or Zach, go back a couple more. I think essentially I'd like to, one more, I think essentially. This is the green area. We're 41% green, not 40.5% green. That actually increased. And if you go back one more, I think essentially I had, this shows the entrance road landscape plan. We planted a significant row of trees in there. And we think that that will make an attractive entrance road. I talked about the small stormwater management facility that's shown on the top of the screen on the left. And the roadway obviously requires permits from Albany County Department of Public Works. They reviewed the plan. They have to go through an approval process regarding the light, and we do have engineer's recommendation that the light be installed, and we think Albany County will go along with that. The main issue is actually the bus traffic, much more so than the car traffic. The warrant was based upon a number of bus trips that will come in here every day. Students arrive by bus from BOCES from a number of districts in our area. And consequently, there's an awful lot of bus trips coming in every day. Now, if we go down further on in a set where we were before, Zach, I think I have a couple more slides that are useful for us to see. These are the physical elevation views with the call out all materials. And the bottom one is the rear of the building, and that's more functional because you see there's overhead doors, there's places where shops are accessed. And this is the more functional side of it. The front side is done with a little bit more attractive treatments on it. And I think I have some elevation views of the Maywood Center next. This is the Maywood Center. There's the front view, the side view, and the rear view. Again, it mimics the colors and treatments that were done in the CTE building. And I think I might have, no, that's probably the end of it. Okay. And I don't, if we go all the way back to the first site plan, we can have something to talk about. There. This is the site plan of what we're applying for approved. The balance of the site will remain empty until another application is made by Rossetti Acquisitions LLC, the owner, to do that. We are preserving the wetlands. Every place where we had wetlands, you'll see up on top of the building, there's a little triangular piece where we built a wall to protect that. And so all of the regulated wetlands are protected on site. We don't disturb the protected wetlands at all. The emergency access goes through and goes over to the roadway in West Shaker. And we'll be working with Rossetti, who owns the other project next door, to make certain that access can be maintained. I'm prepared to answer any questions which the board may have.
Are we reserving access? You probably just said it. Okay, that's where you just had circled, Sean, or is there more?
No, that's a secondary access. It goes over to the roadway that goes called I think it's called West Shaker Drive. I'm not exactly sure what the name of that is. It's down the center of the other apartments.
We often ask to at least reserve connectivity to the adjacent sites.
Yeah, the adjacent site to the rear of us has a significant difference in elevation. As a matter of fact, we're cutting about 18 to 20 feet from from that site right near the property line, we'll get a grading permit, a grading easement will be granted by the adjoining owner. So again, to make a physical roadway connection here, it'd be very difficult. We also believe that British Americans' current development plans, when they get done with the current development plans, there'll be no more.
I think we mean more the sites that are on Albany or whatever Shaker Road this is here.
What's that?
The properties on Shaker Road, I think, would be more relevant.
Yeah. Okay. Well, again, we are connecting to the property, the Rossetti property. That's to the top of the screen. The other property is owned by the County of Albany. We don't think that there's any rationale. It has the tower on it. And it has no other use for it. Are you meaning we should do a connection in that direction too?
I don't know. We'll see what our town designated engineer and anybody else have to say on that.
I'm done with my presentation.
Okay, this similar to the other projects is reviewed by our town designated engineer. In this case, it's Barton and LaJudas, and I think we have Chuck Boss here somewhere to give us his comments, and he's prepared a review letter as well.
Peter, I'm here. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Yeah, I would like to certainly thank Dan and his team for bearing us in technical paperwork the last several months. I know, as Monique said, the applicant has spent a significant amount of time trying to pull this project together. It's a very large project, a lot of details, a lot of information, but I think they've done a pretty fantastic job to date at really being very responsive to not only our comments and our comment letters, but certainly to the town departments as well. And I'm not going to certainly go through and recap what Dan described. I think he did a great job at kind of giving you the overall picture of the site, but I just wanted to touch on kind of the progress that they've made to date and how the TDEs and the town departments have been responding. And as we know right now, the project is really on a fast track due to some of their state financing requirements. And I think we're certainly sensitive to that. From a regional standpoint, we certainly think that the project, fits the site. It fits the development patterns that we're starting to see now over that section of town. And in terms of the overall site density, we think that the project is situated on the site in such a way that it will really minimize any impact. So we like the way the site is laid out. We like the sort of campus approach that they've developed for this site. We think it makes a lot of sense. And for the relative intensity of use that this site will see, and as Dan said, it's primarily bus traffic, we think having the CTE center situated as far back on the parcel as possible makes a lot of sense. The access road itself certainly was being built to town standards, town specifications, so we're comfortable with that. As I said, the project now is advanced past its first preliminary review, which is really the first major technical review that occurs with site plans, as you all know. We put together a very extensive letter, given the complexity and the scale of the site. And I have to say, Dan and his team did a fantastic job at really addressing pretty much everything in that letter. I'd also like to just recap quickly too, as Dan alluded to, the fact that the planning department is now instituting what we think is an excellent approach to having what we call a second DCC meeting, where the town departments get together to look at the advanced designs of these projects prior to, it's really occurring between the first and second preliminary review processes. And we think this is a critical timing, because what it does is it gives the town departments a chance to look at the technical aspects of the project and comment on them, and then share those comments with the applicant prior to them advancing the design beyond what might be feasible or not. And on November 9th, we had a meeting with all the town departments. We had that second DCC meeting, and it was very productive, very fruitful, and it allowed each department to go through and discuss their comments in detail with the applicant and their design team. It allowed Dan and his folks, a chance to reply, and it was a great way to open up communication and really avoid any confusion between written comments, that you might see in the letter versus discussing them in person. So That meeting alone, we feel was extremely productive in advancing the technical aspects of this project. And when I say technical, I mean sewer, water, utilities, roads, any impacts that we might see, early on in the technical review process. So we're extremely pleased to see that happening. As the board knows, this is also a type 1 action under seeker. So in concert with that and in concert with the applicant's attorneys, we put together a seeker recommendation, which is a negative declaration. We looked at the full EAF that they prepared, and we have that ready for the board as well. So from a technical standpoint, an engineering standpoint, although there might be some minor details left to sort out with some of the departments and with our comments, we feel that from a technical standpoint, the project is ready to go. It is, in our opinion, ready for a final conditional approval if the board sees fit. And can
you articulate that condition?
Yeah, really, with the
conditional approval, we have to start thinking about the verbiage that we're going to use.
Yeah, Peter, it's very similar to what you typically do, where you would predicate any final condition of approval on the applicant meeting any TDE or town department technical comments, once final approval is made.
Oh, okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, and we'd also recommend, the seeker neg deck as well this evening, and that we've prepared that for the board and it's in your packets.
Do you mind addressing my question about connectivity?
Yeah, it's actually a good question, and with the BOCES campus,
Sean, can you put the map up?
With the BOCES campus site, Peter, the emergency access road to the Rossetti site to the west, we feel is certainly appropriate. And that's something that the fire department had asked for, that second means of egress. The complexity comes in is that the Shaker West site, which is another Rossetti site that we're talking about just to the west, between this site and the Afram site, isn't built yet. It's been approved and it's advancing, but they haven't gone under construction yet. So it's just a matter of timing as to what's going to happen first, kind of the chicken or the egg. But as Dan said, he's been working very diligently with Pure Waters and the water department to run potential water utilities through there and the access site. From a connectivity site or aspect, we don't see that emergency access road as being a logical link between the Shaker West apartment complex to the west of this site and the BOCES site. We really would prefer not to encourage traffic to flow in or out of that Shaker West site because it's a residential site. If the board remembers, there's a lot of apartments in there, narrower roadways, and we really don't want to see that as a cut through for people trying to, traverse through these sites.
What about future access to the light?
Yeah, future access to the light, certainly that's something that could be looked at. Maybe you could allow one-way traffic through from the Shaker West site. But my thought initially is that if you have students mingling between those buildings and traversing between those parking lots, you really don't want cross traffic coming through there. What I would say from a connectivity standpoint, as Dan mentioned, further to the south of the site, the undeveloped lands that are still ready to potentially be developed in the future, I see connectivity down there with some of the other parts of the Shaker West site. You can't go really any further to the east or towards the airport on this site because the airport radar installation is on the hillside right there.
Yeah.
And as Dan mentioned, you really can't push too much further to the north because the British American site, I think, is envisioning development further towards their west. However, Dan has been talking to the water department about potentially having a water main connection maybe at some point in the future through there, which this site could accommodate. So from a utility standpoint, you might have some interconnection, but I think from any other standpoint, as Dan said, the grades change quite a bit, and it probably just isn't feasible to have this site and the British American site really linked for traffic or anything like that.
Do any of the board members have an opinion on that topic?
Peter, just from the public safety standpoint, I don't think you want the couple hundred kids from BOCES driving to the apartments. I don't think you want the apartments driving to the parking lot. It would not be a very safe issue, especially with the buses. I look at Colonie Central where Hackett is a semi-public private road and it's a disaster at dismissal time. You wouldn't want to cross traffic between the two.
Okay, the emergency connection here, is that, you're recommending we get rid of that, Chuck? Is that what
No,
you're
no,
saying?
no. No, I'm recommending we keep that, but just keep it for emergency access only.
Okay, okay. So you like the map the way it is, Chief Hyder, right?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, it'd be nice. I'm a big believer in connectivity, but I just don't think these two parcels are meant to be connected.
Okay, anybody else have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I feel the same way. We don't usually send commercial into residential if we can help it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. It was an important issue and I appreciate everybody's opinion. So you're done, Chuck?
Yep, we're all set here. Thank you.
Are there any members of the public, Sean, looking to speak?
Nobody signed up. I think I have Mr. Stapleton has one comment.
Okay.
Everybody can hear me now?
Yes.
I have a question on, was it Route 155? Is there a proposed traffic light going to go in at the entrance to this road? First question. And the second question or remark is, doesn't that give you 3 traffic lights within like a mile of each other on that road? Sand Creek, this road, and then there's one closer to the airport before you get back where you take the right on 155?
Yep.
When's the traffic light going in?
We think it's going to go in before we get a CO on a building. We anticipate having it in before we get a CO on a building.
Can you talk about the logic of the traffic light?
Yeah, the spacing between traffic light was considered by Albany County Department of Public Works. Obviously, those people who move traffic through an area like less traffic lights rather than more. DOT is a hard organization to convince to put traffic lights in unless they really are warranted. Our warrant study was done, and the principal warrant was the buses coming there and carrying children in and out. So again, on that basis there, we think the light is warranted. There'll be signal timing be worked out to make it more changes taking place when it needs, activated signal on our side so that it doesn't turn red just in a cycle. A whole bunch of issues with that traffic signal will be worked out with Albany County Department of Public Works. They actually control that intersection.
Are the lights going to be synchronized?
I'm pretty sure they're going to want them.
They're going to want to synchronize them. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I think they all have modern controllers that can accept the synchronization. But again, there's some timing work to be done. And the question is, our model will show us at our build out time with these 2 buildings built. And then when Rossetti develops the balance of site, the timing would have to be addressed again, I'm sure.
Okay. Any board comments on that?
No, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
It should be noted that the BOCES, the Career Center, won't generate any more traffic on Waterbury Shaker Road because it already does to its current location about a half mile up the road.
Right.
So that's not going to bring any more traffic. The Maywood Center is much smaller scale, but I think the light is absolutely necessary considering the amount of buses. That's why they have the light up by Bly Road, is to again service the Career Center up there. So that's why they got to have the light.
Peter, as we move forward to putting conditions, I think we should have something about that traffic light make sure that traffic light is reevaluated when they come back for the rest of the buildings on this site. Because the traffic signal is there not because of those other buildings, it's there because of the schools. And those other buildings shouldn't necessarily be tripping that light, so to speak. That's all.
I guess I'm going to stay on this, even though it's not exciting necessarily, but I think at Shaker L, don't they turn that light off and time it at different?
Well, they were supposed to, but when it actually finally got done, that light is operational all day, but it trips based on traffic coming out of Shaker L.
Okay. Is that the proper way, or are you saying that's not the? Yeah.
Well, I mean, they didn't want it to go on flash because the bottom line is the necessity for the light came from the traffic from Shaker L at all times of the day, not just during the arrival and dismissal. So, and that'll be the similar thing.
Oh, okay.
These people
Okay.
come in and out of the school morning and afternoon. I'm sure it'll be
Yeah,
a trip and it'll go from there.
Okay, okay.
But the one at Shaker L only trips when there's traffic coming out of Shaker L.
Correct.
And is that if I understood what Dan said, that's the case here as well?
Yes, it'll be activated by traffic. The question is, will it be totally activated by traffic, or will they put in, a short signal over, every 4 minutes or so, put a, 20-second in there? Again, I'm not sure whether it's entirely activated, but they sometimes have put in a short cycle in case someone misses tripping the signal.
And all I was saying is that because there's going to be other commercial buildings here, we need to make sure that that traffic light gets reevaluated when those buildings, otherwise it's going to be being tripped all the time by the traffic on this driveway, essentially.
Okay, can we get a note on the plans for that, Chuck?
Yep, we'll do.
Okay. Okay, let's go around the board. Paul?
As far as the traffic light, if you go to the towers of Colonie, that's on a motion. Okay, if there's no cars coming out of the towers, that light pretty much stays green. And if you travel down 9W where the thruway authority is, that's basically works the same way. If there's no cars coming out, the traffic pretty much, and I go on that every day, that traffic stays green. So there's ways around this. And sometimes in the day, there was a time when we actually put pressure plates under the pavement to trigger lights. So there's ways around this. I'm sure Dan will come up with the best idea on this.
Okay, thank you. I learn something every day. Susan? Do we have Susan?
Yes, okay. Question, do you need all 510 parking spots, or can some of those be banked? I mean, since this is a school, how many cars are actually being generated?
Well, we proposed to only build 475. I'm going to bank 35. The 475 was based upon real numbers that BOCES has generated at their existing facility based upon their need. They run short of parking at their existing facility quite often. And we think that the 475 is needed. We're banking 35. So we banked what we could.
Okay. And then just in terms of the design, in terms of the, let's see, the training center, I don't know if you could put a little more color, like on the vertical in between, like the orange and the green and the narrow.
Oh yeah, cool. Let's talk about architectural. Can you put the pictures of the buildings up? Is that the building you want, Susan?
Yeah, we could start with that one. But I was thinking just a little more color, maybe in between the orange and the green or gray. There's that narrow vertical. I don't know if that would make sense, but something to break up all that white. And I don't know if there's anything can be done so that it's not as flat on top. This one definitely is way too beige and needs more color, or whether it's a horizontal stripe of another color. But if we can do something to help make it add a little bit more color.
Does anybody else want to comment on the architecture while we're on it, while we have the drawings out?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
Dan, how'd you arrive at color orange? I've seen dozens and dozens of Shaker buildings, but I've never seen one that was orange.
The relationship to Shaker architecture, we were advised there's no reason to try to imitate Shaker architecture. The goal here was to build something modern, and quite honestly, the elements of the building were not meant to reflect the Shaker heritage at all. We met with the people of the Shaker Heritage Society, and they said essentially they don't want us to try to mimic anything from the Shaker architecture. So that was the direction given to the architect. So colors and everything else, we stayed away from any attempt. Not that these buildings could very well mimic the smaller frame, primarily frame Shaker buildings, or even their brick buildings. I had a number of brick buildings too, but again, our goal here was not to try to.
I was kind of surprised because when at the last meeting, we talked about showing something that had a connectivity with the West family.
They were more concerned that our landscaping reflect something like they did.
Right.
So I did try to use some landscaping that they would appreciate as being of the era when Shakers occupied the area.
Right.
We did that when we did the funerals directors building. We adapted primarily all the cultivars and stuff we used were actually around back then. So again, we tried to use items like that, but I don't think the thought ever was that we try to take anything from the Shaker architecture and put it into the building. There obviously, on the adjoining apartment complex, there was efforts made to have some Shaker buildings maintained, as well as having public accessibility, as well as regular classes. I know Rossetti proposes to do that they're already doing some on the existing site, but proposes to do that after the apartments are built. So the site doesn't really have that capability.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else on the architecture? And if you could express whether you agree with Susan's comments or not. I'm not sure if I do. I like the buildings fine. I'll express myself. Does anybody else have any comments on the buildings?
I wouldn't want to see it go any further than that.
Meaning what?
In terms of the colors.
Okay, so is that a disagreement with Susan, sort of?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak?
I like it the way it is.
Okay.
Pete, it's Sean here. I'll just also comment in our discussion with the Shakers. I would, agree with what Dan said here is that, they're not looking for this to mimic or reflect the Shaker architectural style. But I think that the muted colors are appropriate, in that district. As for the orange and blue, they certainly stand out. But that's also part of that BOCES branding that they use. So,
Peter, may I add something?
Sure, of course.
I just heard from Brandon Stabler with BBL, and he said they worked extensively with Shaker Heritage Society, who approved the site plan, landscaping plan, and building elevations.
Okay, thank you. Any other board members? Chief, Craig, Paul?
Peter, I guess I just got one comment, and it actually goes to something that Dan said. The back of the building is not very attractive by Dan's own admission.
Okay.
That's where the shops are and things like that. There's no screening for the potential neighbor to the rear. That's my only consideration.
Okay, can we get a picture up? That helps us understand his comment.
They're within 60 foot of the property line.
Yeah.
And there's no potential for there's no suggestion for any screening.
Yeah.
Sean, can you show us?
Go down about 4 slides and it shows the elevations of the building. Down further. Next one. There we go. Go back up. This is the utilitarian side I mentioned that Chief Hyder is talking about.
Right. And which direction does that face?
This is looking from the British American side at the back of the building.
Okay.
I don't think there's potential use for screening back there. We already do have a 20-foot hill behind us there. So most of the lower side, unless you're up where you can see over the crest of the hill, will be screened. And the building, only the upper floor, maybe floor and a half of the 3-story section will be visible at all. But again, I know it's utilitarian. I just have the two different tones in there. If you needed more, I could send it back to the architects. I don't do the architecture myself, obviously. I'm not that skilled.
I'm not worried about the architecture. I mean, it's a shop area. It's going to look like a shop area. I've seen the shop area with the existing BOCES. It looks a lot like this. It's just the only thing I'm concerned about. It's 60 foot from the rear property line, and we have no screening mentioned. Now, if the hill prevents that, that's fine. But I can't see that on a flat piece of paper right here.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we're not showing this to the potential nice office building on British American in the back who's going to complain about it.
Chief, this is Chuck. If I could just jump in real quick and just add to what Dan was saying, there's a significant elevation rise off the back of this building. And then it's fairly heavily wooded back there as well. So in leaf off conditions, there might be a little view shed between the two properties, British American and this one. But with existing, Hilton Hotel, British American has no plans that we know of to build any closer to the property line in the back. So they're looking to actually build further to the west of their parcel, not further to the south. So there's really minimal visual impacts between these two buildings.
That's all I had, Peter.
Oh, is that satisfactory, Chief?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll defer to the professionals, I know there's not a lot of room to plant some things because the parking lot is very close to the property line. And if there is a big hill back there, I've never been that far back. I'll take Chuck's word for it.
Okay. If you have any other, Chuck and Sean still have final approval on certain technical things. So if you change your mind, give those guys a call.
Okay, I will.
Yeah.
Peter, I just wanted to mention one last thing.
Yes.
In relation to Shaker Heritage Society, they're actually naming the road Shaker Orchard Road. Shaker Heritage gave the BOCES a number of name possibilities, and they selected that one. So there's been a very close working relationship.
Is that a public safety issue, Chief, do you think, or no?
I mean, as long as the 911 people go along with it, at the end of the day, I believe this is going to have a Watervliet Shaker Road address. So,
okay.
So the only problem comes in is that at the end of the day, it's a Watervliet Shaker Road address. They can name that road whatever they want, but you've got to mail something to the Watervliet Shaker Road address.
Okay, so they're just naming their own driveway, right?
Correct. I would think.
Well, if that's the case, are they going to put up a sign that says private road or what?
I think the town would mandate that at the end of the road.
Yeah, you normally see a sign with the road named and underneath it, it says private.
Right.
Okay.
But there's no confusion.
I believe we use a reverse color scheme on those signs, so that's pretty clear.
Okay. Okay, great. Good discussion. Craig, did you want to talk about the architecture?
No, I mean, generally speaking, I think the building looks great. I mean, I kind of agree with Susan that a little more color in some spots would jazz it up a little bit, but I'm not looking to buck the trend here.
Okay. Okay. I forget where we were. Somebody was speaking before we got off on architecture. Was it you, Susan? I think Susan, you still have the table or still have the floor.
I'm finished.
Okay, Craig?
Everything has been answered. The only question I have, with one exception, Dan, it looks like on the driveway in that you only have landscaping on one side of the driveway. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's because we're on the other side, there's existing foliage there. It doesn't look, but there's significant foliage that we're trying to retain in there. We're trying to keep our grading very tight to the roadway.
Okay.
Retaining a lot of foliage in there.
Okay, that's fine. That's it, Peter.
Okay, Paul, did you speak already? I can't recall.
No, I'm all set, Peter.
Okay, Chip?
The only other thing I couldn't find on here, we got a mountain of paperwork, and I don't see any of the amenities around the building, such as bicycle racks, electric vehicle charging stations, benches.
We have both. We saw some electrical vehicle charging stations, and my guess on most of these buildings will probably pre-wire other places, because invariably these electric vehicles, if they get their way, they will take over the world. So we'll need a lot of electrical charging stations. So in any event, our goal here would be to provide that. We do sell some bike racks, although very few people will bike here, but there are potential for some evening time students or some faculty. So we do provide bike racks. We do, the detailed site plan shows them. I don't know whether or not, if you go down once, I don't know whether I can pick them out.
And they're small. The details are hard to see.
Yeah, but again, There are bike racks called out and the vehicle charging stations are called out there too. Just hard pressed picking them out in my view.
No,
I don't think there'll be many people riding their bikes to this building.
No.
Is that satisfactory, Chip?
yeah, I gotta agree with Mr. Voss that it's a good looking plan. Really well done.
Okay, thank you. Lou?
Well, everything has been addressed.
Okay.
I like it.
Okay, Chief?
I'm done.
Chuck, can you walk us through the environmental review?
Sure, Peter. The board should have in their packets our seeker recommendation. And again, this is a type 1 seeker action. There was a coordinated review done. I also included in the board's packet the full environmental assessment form, the full part 2, which goes through 10 pages of relevant questions. What we did is we boiled that down essentially into the summary, and I can go through that quickly, Peter, if you'd like.
Please.
So essentially, these are the 11 questions that the part 2 form asks, and I'll just go through it quickly. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? The answer is no. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of land use? The answer is no, or small impact will recur. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? Again, the answer is no, or small impact. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? The answer again is no. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? Again, the answer is no, or small impact may occur. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? Again, the answer is no, or small impact may occur. Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies or public-private wastewater treatment utilities? Again, the answer is no, or small impact may occur. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? Again, the answer is no, or small impact may occur. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to the natural resources? For example, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, fauna? Again, the answer is no, or small impact may occur. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? Again, the answer is no, or small impact may occur. And finally, will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? And the answer is no, or small impact may occur. We then went on to prepare part 3, a significance, the determination. It's fairly extensive. The board should have that, and this basically outlines how the project will benefit and how it will mitigate any potential impacts. And at the end of that, we basically put together the final resolution, negative declaration, and basically the.
Can you read the title and the you know what to do?
Yeah, certainly. This is notice.
Oh, do we have a steno here or no?
Yeah, I think Nancy's on.
Nancy's on.
Okay, let's get her a full copy of the resolution if we could, and ask her to enter it into the record.
Okay. And I'll just read the last page. This is the notice of determination of no significant effect on the environment. This is a negative declaration. In accordance with Article 8 of the State Environmental Quality Review Act and the statewide regulations under Act 6 NYCRR Part 617, the lead agency has received an environmental assessment form in connection with the proposed action below, and the lead agency has determined 1, that said proposed action will result in no major impacts and therefore will not have a significant effect on the environment, and 2, therefore that an environmental impact statement is not required to be prepared with respect to the said action. And if you go down to Part C, the reasons for this determination are as follows. The lead agency has reviewed the application, site plans, project description, and all supporting documentation, and conducted such further investigation of the project and its environmental effects as the lead agency has deemed appropriate, Based on this review, the lead agency has determined that the action will have no significant effects on the environment. And again, an environmental impact statement is therefore not required.
Okay, any comments or discussion by the board?
Just have one minor thing. On B, the town of Colonies is now considered to be in Latham, not Newtonville. Could we could get that fixed? I want this to be 100%.
Thanks, Paul. We'll make sure we correct that.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'll just say this because it's a new world now. I'm signing this thing electronically, and I'm going to ask Sean to somehow. Can you redo it and get it to me, Sean, or do you want to pen and pencil it?
I'll take care of it and I'll have it to you shortly.
Okay, thanks. Okay, that's the only. Any other comments? Do we have a motion to
Make a
approve?
motion.
That's Lou. Do we have a second?
Second.
That's Chip. Any discussion? All
Yeah.
those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Susan.
No, Kathy.
Hi.
Hi. Don't forget the conditions.
This is just the seeker.
Oh, okay.
When we take the main motion, we'll do the conditions.
Okay.
Yeah. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it unanimously. Do you, if anybody has a negative, no one's spoken negative. Is that good enough for you? Did you want a roll call on this?
I want to do a roll call, but I also wanted to restate the resolution because how we need to put this in the minutes.
Okay, okay.
Just be it resolved that this project is a type 1 action and based on the provided EAF, the board determines that the action will not have a significant impact on the environment and that the attached negative declaration be filed.
Okay. Does the board have any objection to including that in the motion that we're about to take a roll call on? Hearing no objection, I will ask Sean to take the roll.
Lou Mayan,
Yay.
Steve Hyder,
Aye.
Chip Ashworth,
Aye.
Paul Rosano,
Aye.
Susan Milstein,
Yes.
Craig Shamlian,
Yes.
Peter Studo.
Aye.
You guys have it.
Okay, the main question before the board is for final site plan approval. Subject to the conditions mentioned before, which are that final details will be approved by the town designated engineer and the chairman of the Planning and Economic Development Department. And do we have an initial motion on that?
Peter, can we add a condition on the traffic light?
Okay, traffic light will be evaluated when the rest of the site is developed, reevaluated. Okay, that's one of the conditions as well. And I've asked a note to be put on the drawings for that. And Chuck said yes.
If you'd like, I can state what I have down for your motion here.
Okay.
So it's a motion to approve the final plan. Be it resolved that the final plan is approved, condition on the approval of the town departments of any remaining technical review, and that if the site plan presented here remains, and that the site plan here presented, I'm sorry, and I have an if here. Be it resolved.
Can you add the TD town designated engineer in there too, in addition to the? No, you know what? I think the town departments are fine because yeah.
All right, so the motion to approve the final plan, be it resolved that the final plan is approved, condition on the approval of the town departments of any remaining technical review, and that the site plan presented here remains unchanged, and be it further resolved that the future development of this site shall trigger a reevaluation of the configuration of the traffic control device to be installed at the entrance of the site at Waterville Shaker Road.
Okay, did we already make the motion? Do you want to read? I'll entertain that motion.
I'll make a motion.
Lou. Second. Chip second. Okay, any discussion? Susan, do you want to take a run at changing making an amendment for the architecture or no?
You can look into whether any modifications should be made to the architecture to enhance it So.
Okay, well, how does the rest of the board feel about that? I mean, let's have a discussion on that. You're just suggesting that the staff look at it? If they can make any improvements?
Right, yes. That's sufficient for me because overall it's a good product. I'd like to see some enhancements to it. I would like to see Dan take it back to the architect to see if they can do some, minor modifications and not a rework. So I would be satisfied with that.
I'm good with that.
Okay, any discussion by the board? Any objections to that?
I think since this, if I understood it correctly, the Shakers kind of were involved in that and they liked it the way it was. And I personally am pleased the way it is.
Okay, I think we're gonna have to take a vote then. Sean, did you write that down?
I did a couple of notes here.
Let me say this. Dan, do you have any suggestions or does anybody have any suggestions of specific changes?
I just want to say Lou raises a good point. There was some significant concerns from the state on the historic district here. And we do have a letter of resolution with the Shaker Heritage Society to address a number of those things. As I understand, the architecture and design of this certainly weighs into that.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to express myself. You've convinced me that I'm not going to personally support the amendment to the resolution. But we can take a vote on it, or everybody can just express themselves. I don't know.
I'll withdraw it.
Okay.
If the board will, it's Brandon Stabler. I'm representing the applicant. Can I say a couple of words related?
Sure, of course.
Thank you. While we certainly understand the concerns that some of the board members have about the architecture of the building, I think it's important to note that Shaker Heritage Society, as Monique mentioned before, was very involved in the design of the building, and they've approved it. BOCES, as the tenant in the building for 20 years, has been extensively involved as well, and they have approved it. And there are some elements on the building that were designed at the request of BOCES, like highlighting the entrances to the buildings to make them easy to find. And the third point is that all of the plans and specifications for these buildings have gone through an extensive review with the New York State Education Department. And SED has signed off on all of these plans as they are. If there are any changes that were to be made, that would significantly delay the process for this project.
Okay, she withdrew her motion, so you heard her withdraw the motion, right?
Peter, the only comment I have is to the applicant is based on the comments, some of the comments from board members. They need to be cognizant of this when they come forward with the rest of the parcel, and we probably need to see some good elevations before early in the process. That's all.
Okay. Back to the main motion, which is before us. Any further discussion? Okay, Sean, will you call the roll? It'll just be easy.
Yep. Lou Mayan.
Aye.
Stephen Hyder.
Aye.
Chip Ashworth. Paul Rosano.
Aye.
Susan Milstein.
Aye.
Craig Shamlian.
Aye.
Peter Studo.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you very much. We will call up the fourth and final project.
Thank you very much, members of the board.
You're welcome, Dan. Have a nice holiday if we don't see you.
You too.
1126 Loudon Road, Ridgeview Meadows at North Colonie subdivision. Public hearing and final review of a 22.15 acre, 22 lot subdivision with 20 residential lots, 1 stormwater lot, and 1 lot dedicated to the town. We've already read the notice of the public hearing, and this is a continuation of the public hearing from a week ago. I'll turn it to the department for any introduction they may want to give, and then we'll turn it over to the applicant.
I invite Monique. Monique's the planner on this project, if she'd like to introduce us.
Can we get the drawing up? Yeah.
I don't have much more to add except that this has been through several iterations, and the applicants worked closely with town departments and with neighbors to resolve issues. I think you have some neighbors who may want to speak tonight. And we're recommending approval subject to compliance with all department comments similar to the previous submission project.
Okay, we'll turn, who's speaking?
It's being represented by Roger Keating of Chazen Companies.
Okay, Roger, we're going to turn it over to you, and I understand some last minute changes, if you will, and that's not a criticism, were made in response to comments by the neighbors. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. For the record, this is Roger Keating from the Chazen Companies. I'm here tonight on behalf of Ridgeview Meadows at North Colony to present to you the final plans for review and approval here this evening. I also have Ben Avery, who is the applicant for the project. You know, over the past year, we've been working with the town, the departments, and the TDE on this project, making revisions to it. I'll just in brief summary here. The project site's around, again, 22 acres in size. We're zoned single family residential. We're planning to propose 22 lots, 20 single family homes. The lots are all consistent with the SFR zoning district. Some of the changes that have taken place over time here over the past year has been related to a lot of the utilities on the project site, so that utilities have the ability to be extended towards Route 9, to those Route 9 properties. So we've worked closely with the departments to be able to make it such that those utilities can be extended that way. Also, stormwater management is still being managed in the central portions of the project site, similar to what you've seen before. And Mr. Chairman, as you mentioned, we did make a few changes here just late as it relates to some of the or the area that revolves around the access, the pedestrian access that is at the end of Weatherby Court and Bergen Woods Drive. That area.
Can we point to that, Sean?
Sean, if you want to point to the bottom of the page there, on this drawing here. Yep, just down a little bit. So what you see here is the pedestrian access that we've created from Bergen Woods Drive to the development, you know, to the end of where Weatherby Court ends today. What we've done is we've since the plan that you see on the screen here, we've even moved it even a little further to the right, so that that area has been shifted about another 20 feet or so from the adjacent property lines to protect some of the existing vegetation that's over there and provide a little bit more green space between that access, that pedestrian access between the two developments. So that is a recent change, Mr. Chairman, that we've been able to do.
So there's going to be more separation and more green space between that lot 15 or 15 Weatherby and the road and the pedestrian.
That is correct. Yep. So we've been able to shift that over, which helps us, you know, create additional green space there. Okay. And then Sean had mentioned he wanted to get an idea maybe of what the pedestrian gates, the type of thing that we were looking at there. Sean, do you have that picture I had sent to you that you could maybe just pull up just for the board's interest?
Yep. Let me give me a second to pull that up if you want to.
But I can just basically describe it. So, Mr. Chairman, you know, we'd like to provide some sort of, you know, gate access there so that pedestrians can use that path to connect between the two neighborhoods. And so we sent something over to Sean as to what we were looking at, thinking, you know, what our thoughts were. And we're open for you guys to take a look at that if you had any comments regarding it. If not, but basically what it is, it allows it, you know, some gates that can be offset so that people can freely move between them, but it restricts vehicles from getting in there. The town has at many of their bike paths. This is just another example of how it can be applied. The town has it at many of their bike paths, use bollards, you know, with a drop bollard. That's something we would be open to as well. But we thought, you know, in the neighborhood there, it might be nice to have that type of you know, swing gate that would be allowed for that type of scenario. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you. And then I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, we'll we'll get back to specifically address that with the board after we hear from our town designated engineer and from the residents. This has been reviewed by our town designated engineer, Barton LaJudas. Chuck Voss is here to go over his, and he issued a letter as well of review. Chuck's here to give us his comments on his review. Chuck?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Monique mentioned, and as Roger alluded to, this project has now undergone upwards of 5 separate reviews by the TDEs and the town departments. And each one of those reviews was really in response to changes made to the project by, requested by neighbors and interested parties. And I have to say the applicants have really done a nice job at responding to those. As Roger alluded to, one of the early changes into the project was the lot sizes. The applicant came in originally with smaller lot sizes and smaller proposed home footprints. They've since obviously expanded that, both in terms of parcel size and in terms of footprints to better match the existing homes in the surrounding neighborhoods. That was an early concern by some of the neighbors. And then also certainly in terms of the layout and access and pedestrian connections, I think they've done a nice job. From a technical standpoint, we've met with all the town departments now. The departments are all satisfied with the project as it's proposed. Pure Waters is now happy with the sewer being certainly routed the way it is. They were looking for connectivity between some of the prior cul-de-sacs. That's now happening. Same with Latham Water. They're now pleased to see some of the looping of the water mains in this area, which will provide potentially better water service to the new development as well as the existing developments that are in that area. And as Roger mentioned, as of relatively recently, they've opted to move that pedestrian pathway a little further to the east. They can't move it too much further because then they run into some grading issues with the wetlands that are adjacent nearby. But I think, talking with Roger the other day, they've moved it pretty much as far as they can, and we're pleased to see that. They've also discussed, planting some additional evergreen trees along that one side with 15 Weatherby if necessary. And I think that's certainly something that the board, might be interested in, is just providing a little bit further buffering with that parcel as well. But other than that, from a technical standpoint, the project has met all its requirements. Once the application receives final approval from the planning board, the applicant will then make full application to the Army Corps for their necessary permits. The Army Corps technically likes to have a full, complete application to look at. They don't like to look at applications that are really in process or a state of flux. If there are any changes that the Corps requires, the applicant certainly would have to come back before this board for any amendments, but typically it's not likely that happens with the design being this far advanced. Most applicants and certainly the town departments look at, the core requirements when we do our reviews as well to make sure they're consistent. So, but that will be a requirement certainly as the project goes forward, as well as any county health department approvals, for sewer and water. And again, those are routine approvals and permits that happen, pretty much after this board is done. Other than that, we're pleased to see the project evolve the way it is, and it's complete from our technical standpoint. So we really have no further comments, Peter.
Do you have any strong opinions on the pedestrian gate?
I like to see the gates. I think they make sense. They certainly are a discouragement to, motorized vehicle access down some.
Well, there's gonna be a gate. The question is which one, I guess.
There was one that I think Sean showed that was decorative, a little bit more decorative up front.
The first one?
Yeah,
they were sort of staggered.
Yeah, certainly I would stagger them, but aesthetically, I think that kind of cast iron look is there it is a little bit more significant and looks less commercial, if you will. So that would be my preference, anyways.
Is that staggered? I don't know if that's the right word, or is that straight?
Yeah, they're offset. They look like they're
offset. That's the word, offset. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Does Sean or any of the board members have an opinion?
I like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we would prefer something that has an appearance like this a little more so than the ones that are rather quite basic.
Okay.
I was trying to give you guys the representation. There's not a lot of photos out there of them offset, but then there's plenty of photos where they're like nose to nose. We prefer to have them offset. I think it provides a little more visual appearance that they're actually like almost touching when you're driving down, straight at it, that type of thing. So.
Okay. That's just one of those details that I don't want to get hung up on. I think we have a number of neighbors here that are going to speak, and I will try to call them up. I found the list. I believe David Vickers is the first one that has an interest in this project. Is Mr. Vickers here?
I'm going to ask him to unmute.
Okay, we can go to the next one and come back to him. Right, okay. Mr. Vickers, is he? Yeah, okay, he's not speaking.
He's still muted.
Jeffrey Connery?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. All right. I just wanted to say I would agree with Mr. Voss. Things have progressed really well with this project. Mr. Keating has been listening to everything that we've been asking about with all the considerations. Couple things that I would like to know. I live at 15 Weatherby, what we were just talking about.
Okay, yeah.
About moving the access road over slightly. I'm just wondering, is there anything I can look at to see exactly where that's moving to? Because the plan currently that I'm seeing right now doesn't really show that.
I'll ask our staff. That's a fair question.
Yeah. Also, my question is, how wide is that actually going to be? Because I know fire trucks are no wider than 9 feet wide. So, and I know I've seen some of these other roads that are upwards of 20 feet wide. We just want to try to keep it as narrow as possible, but yet still have fire department emergency access.
Okay, I'll let the applicant answer that.
Yeah, it is 20 feet wide. That is the width that we have shown on here in the event that we needed to get an emergency vehicle down there. The primary intent here is, for the pedestrian interconnectivity, but, there is some benefit to being able to have that as an emergency access. And that is the width that we would be looking to have there for that type of access, the ability for it to serve dual purpose.
I just don't understand why you would need 20 feet. I mean,
that was I can jump in. That was a requirement from the fire department. They were specifically asking for 20 feet to handle a large rig.
Okay. The only other thing regards to that area right there, we were talking about different trees. I know there was 3 different type of trees that you were looking at putting in those areas. We're looking for more of like an evergreen blue spruce type trees that we can put in there to help create that separation.
Yeah, I think that's, Jeff, I think that's fair. One of the things I had mentioned to Chuck is that the applicant's willing to, there's existing trees along your property. And, when we shift this over, we're shifting it over about another 20 feet over to the east. So what we would like to be able to do is, I think we're committed to being able to put those trees there, some additional evergreens, as you said. And what we want to do is when the trees are, removed over in that area, we can better place them so that, I can show some on the drawing, but we'd like to place them so that, I'm not taking a tree down to put a small tree up, so I think that's some of it.
And you know what, myself and Mr. Malicki, where the sewer easement goes through right there, we're both looking for the same type of thing, that separation to move the, Mr. Malicki would like to see the easement go a little closer to the wetland area, just as the road going through alongside my house, and just getting some evergreen trees planted in those areas. But it sounds like that's what the plan is, what you guys are doing.
Correct.
Monique, can we go to the other end of the development where the roundabout is? I had a quick question about that.
Give me 1 second.
Okay. When you look at the roundabout,
Scroll it down.
do you want me to wait from the zoom in on it, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I thought, are you still working on that, Sean?
Yep. Froze up.
Okay, so yeah, as you can see that roundabout right there, I think it's very similar in design to what it is right in front of my house. It looks like it's going to continue on into Jones's property, which is 645. I'm a little concerned about that. I thought from day one, we talked about this, that we were trying to reduce the amount of traffic that was coming up and down Weatherby Court. Now, if you look at the 11 houses that are on Weatherby Court that have been here for 16 plus years, it's been a very quiet street. Now we're more than willing to say, yep, open it, add new homes, make it look great. And that's what they're doing. The only problem that I see towards the end here is that looks like that's going to continue in some way, shape, or form into 645 Belt Road property, which is Jones's property, which then you run into a cumulative impact of, you have our 11 houses. Now you're going to add 15 more houses. And then Jones's property is going to have another 20 plus houses. When you times that times 2 cars for each house, you're talking almost 100 cars a day coming up.
Okay, let me just slow you up for a second, because we'll address that. Jones's property, has that already been approved, or is that the part that hasn't been approved?
Jones's property has not been approved. It's the upper one that concerns us, because from the last meeting, it appears that it accidentally.
No, I'm actually asking our department. Sean, I think we've addressed this in the past, and maybe the applicant can help me. What's Jones's property zoned right there, Sean? Do you know? Or the applicant?
Residential.
Who's speaking?
It's Jeff Connery.
I'm asking my department. Excuse me, Jeff. I'm asking my department.
Oh,
yeah,
I'm trying to get a discussion going with my department or the applicant.
That should be single family residential. You know, we looked at this with the CGM subdivision at 621. There was a discussion about the access to 645 on the western side of that parcel. And if I recall correctly, there's a lot of wet area there. And Chuck, I think you're the TDE on 621, and we were discussing 645. Do you remember that as well, on the 645 parcel that was, effectively, well, that's currently landlocked the way it's laid out, but the development potential on that site is, I think, pretty impacted by some of the natural conditions.
Is that a mixed zone site? In other words, the part on Route 9 is different than
I don't believe so, but I'll pull it up while we're looking at this.
Yeah, I don't think so, Peter. And just for clarification purposes, the way the cul-de-sac is drawn on Roger's plan is standard. The way we draw them always. The cul-de-sac is shown where it's located, but the right-of-way for the road has to be drawn right out to the end of the property line. It doesn't end where the cul-de-sac ends. By standard.
I want to correct you. It's not a right-of-way. It's a dedicated road.
Correct. It's part of the town. It will be part of the town's dedicated road. And the town highway department requires that any subdivisions show the actual right-of-way going right to the property line, not to the end of the cul-de-sac. So that's just how it's done with every cul-de-sac in town. They may have, a round turnaround at the end, but the actual property lines for that road, or right-of-way, shall we say, go right to the edge of the property. So that's why it's drawn that way. So it may give the appearance that road's going to continue on, but there's whatever's going to happen on the lands of Rio or Jones has nothing to do with this application. We don't know what's going to happen there. To answer your quick question about the CGM project, at one time there was access to the Jones property in the back. However, the CGM application changed. The property owners could not come to agreement, and the Jones property in the back was basically left landlocked because they didn't agree to an access out through the CGM parcel. So right now, that land in the back, which is probably 70% covered in wetlands, because we've looked at it extensively because of all the flooding back there over the years, would be very tough to build on for anybody. Could it be built on at some point in the future? Potentially, but it's certainly not part of this application. Unless Roger has anything, he want to add, but it's not part of what we reviewed. And, like every cul-de-sac in town, they're deemed temporary anyways. Some of them are temporary for 5 years. Some of them are temporary for 30 years until something happens. So, in relation to this project, the dead end cul-de-sac is really, where it should be based on the engineering.
Okay, but one of the big problems I have, and so do all the neighbors in this Dutch Meadows, is that originally when Jones was looking to develop his property, he had two parcels. He had 621 and he had 645. And 621 was just recently approved with 7 lots. It originally only had 6 lots, and there was one opening so that he could access 645. But at the last meeting, for some reason, somehow, I think the board missed this. You guys approved a 7th lot in 621, which now landlocked that. When in prior meetings in 2018, we were assured by the board that we were not going to let that be landlocked. If there was going to be access to that property, it was going to be from Bout Road. Traffic would come in 621 and go down into 645 and come right back out 621. Instead of, now you've landlocked it when I don't think you realized you did it. And now if this gets developed at any point in time, the only other access is out through Weatherby Court, which means now you're going to add almost 100 cars to this development, when really it should have went right back out where it started from.
Pete, do you mind if I just?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, please do.
Yeah. So a couple of things I want to point out here. In the CGM subdivision, the number of lots didn't change. What happened was that there was at one point a disagreement between the property owners there between 621 and 645, whether 645 was still considering building on what I will call the southwestern portion of the parcel, which is where they would have had access through 621. I want to also note that parcel is already landlocked, has been long since landlocked. So the planning board didn't overlook anything here or create the situation that's a situation, as you can see, a number of parcels here are effectively landlocked. But they did, in the final approval, preserve the ability for Rio at 645 to have a right of first refusal on that lot that would provide them access back to 645, understanding that they don't currently have any access, and if they are going to obtain access, they're going to have to get that through a neighboring property. As Chuck Voss from Barton LaJudas RTD said, and just our recollection, it's not part of this project, but there's that property is significantly wet, and so the development potential back there is quite limited. I don't agree that there will be 20 homes placed on that lot back there.
Well, I'll tell you, I won't be the last person you hear from tonight about that, because if you look in the meeting minutes from 2018, we were assured by the board that that was going to be corrected. And when they voted on this very last approval for 621, they voted on this thing, and they, in the meeting minutes, when you read it, it says that you guys are going to make it so that there is access, road access and utility access.
Jeff, I'm going to give you another minute on this. Jeff,
yes.
we're not on that project. We're not on that project.
Yes, I know,
We're
but
talking about this project.
I hear what you're saying, but I think there needs to be some consideration along the way, because now you're landlocking a big piece of land that surely can be developed. If you're developing the lot next to me, there's a lot of water situations back here, but they're managing to do it. And I just feel like we've shot ourselves in the foot by landlocking that upper piece of land when it didn't have to happen, and it wasn't supposed to happen that way. But I won't say any more about it. I'll let other people discuss the issue.
Okay, are you all set?
Yes, the only other thing that I wanted to mention was, can we be assured that we're going to have similar homes that are consistent with Dutch Meadows to keep our property values where they are? Our homes are all 2,400 square feet minimum houses. And when I look at the design for the homes with CGM Builders, he has several really nice houses in there, which I like. But there are 2 to 3 homes in that are around 1,200 square feet, which is very low compared to what our neighborhood is. And we're trying to keep our values up where they should be. And if we approve houses for 1,200 square feet in that area, it starts to lower our property values. I thought we all agreed in the beginning that we were going to try to keep it similar to Dutch Meadows. And I just see there's 2 or 3 homes in that design of 8 houses, maybe. Like I said, some of the houses are beautiful and I would love to see them, but I'm a little concerned about some of the smaller houses. That's all.
If I can answer,
Yep.
this is Ben Avery with BlackRock. We are the applicant. 2 different neighborhoods. The neighborhood directly off Bott Road is limited in lot size, and it's a small infill parcel that I think there are some lots there that lend themselves to the smaller units. All of my understanding from the Marchands is, they view this as truly an extension of existing settlement pattern, and they would be looking to build the larger houses. Given the current economy, the neighborhood, where everything's at, and frankly, what they're paying us for these lots, I think you'll be pleased to see that it'll be lending itself to a much higher end product.
I hope so. I think it will be nice. Like I said, the designs they have are very nice. It's just some of them were small, and that was my concern.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the specific design, but I know the intent here is like kind homes to what's adjacent to them.
Okay. All right. I think that's it. I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your comments. And we'll talk about we haven't seen the elevations, and that's actually a good point. We actually, let's see, can we see the elevations now?
Let me work on that.
Okay.
David Vickers, who you called first, wasn't able to connect, but I see he's back.
Okay, we'll call him next.
Good afternoon or good evening.
Oh, no, we want to look at, okay, why don't you go ahead and then we'll look at the.
I just have a quick thing that I want to bring in. So we're new to the neighborhood. I live at 1 Providence Court on the corner of Bergen Woods Drive. And so we just purchased this home, I would say the end of September. So we're kind of new kids on the block, and I guess you can call my wife and I rookies at this whole process. The question we have, at the end of Bergen Woods Drive, there's kind of like a circle, and according to the plans, which if you guys are gonna bring that up on the screen, what prevents this plan from being like a walkway or a bike path from eventually becoming like a through road to connect to like Weatherby and this new development? I guess, again, we weren't part of
You're
what
saying
happened.
excuse me, is your question about the pedestrian path?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'll let Chuck address whether that's.
It's more on the bottom of the map.
Right there, right?
Yeah, so you could see Mr. Connor, he's pretty much right behind me there where it says 15, but the bottom is connecting Bergen Woods Drive there. So when we think long term, and we're at 1 Providence, so like my backyard is right there, that circle is kind of adjacent to our home here. So I guess from a long-term standpoint, and we're talking about traffic coming into the new development of Weatherby, what's preventing the board from approving this to be kind of like a throughway, for lack of a better explanation?
Okay, I don't see that ever changing in the past. If we needed more access, we would have dealt with it at this time. And I think the pedestrian connection is just an accessory. But I'm going to let the professional staffs answer that. And I'll turn that over to both Chuck or Sean, whoever wants to talk about that.
Yeah, I think in terms of the path, and Chuck, correct me here, the standard at which that is constructed versus a town road standard are entirely different.
Yeah, I don't even know if you could fit a town standard road in there, but
no,
if we were going to connect it, we'd connect it now. I guess that's the point I'm making. But go ahead, Chuck.
Right, and Peter, and just to answer Mr. Vickers' question, yeah, it was always envisioned as a pedestrian pathway and a utility right away. So there's a sewer line that goes through there as well. And And it was never envisioned as a road interconnect for the very reason you were just mentioning. You know, the town just does not want, and the neighborhood didn't want a lot of cut through traffic through there. So that's why that was limited to basically a pedestrian path. It's being designed such that a fire truck, if it had to, you know, get to the end of that cul-de-sac, the new Bergen Woods cul-de-sac, it could. But it's really, you know, it'll never be, in terms of, you know, the site plan, a town, you know, specified road. It won't be able to handle traffic. And right now the town, I don't know if you saw earlier in the plan, the applicant's also going to be putting, you know, gates on there to prevent, you know, any vehicles from trying to get through there as well. So as long as this site plan's in place, you know, it'll never be a through road.
I can't, Mr. Vickers, I can't envision any time that the town would be motivated to put a road in there and go to the expense. The project, traffic works now the way it is. So that's probably the extent to that we can give you an answer on that
It
question.
sounds good. I just got to convince the boss, that's my wife, that we're not going to have.
We'll invite her in. We want to talk. We want to meet her.
Well, you want to meet her. We're also 8 months pregnant. We're having a baby.
Oh boy.
Congratulations.
So therefore, you know, if I have my little daughter running outside in the circle, I would just want to make sure it's not kind of like a racetrack for any of these new neighbors, or, you know,
Yeah.
so.
Understood.
I guess my grandfather always taught me, if you don't ask, you don't know. So
Correct.
Thanks for the explanation. I appreciate it.
Welcome to the town.
Thank you.
That'd be a great place for her to learn to ride her bike, though.
That's true.
Are you all set? Do you have any other questions?
Oh, I'm good. We could go to the next neighbor. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Christopher Guzda.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I know everyone's time is precious, and we've been here for almost 3 hours, so I'll try to keep this brief. First, Roger and Ben, thank you for, you know, listening to the neighborhood and designing something that will, you know, meet or beat our neighborhood. If we could just pull up the plan set, and you know, I just have some questions. You know, we talked about the bike path or this fire access. Minimum width is, I'm just trying to picture it in my head. Minimum width is 20 feet. It's going to be paved with asphalt, or is it like a rock surface or a paver surface, or?
It's paved.
Paved.
Chris.
Okay, thanks, Roger. And then, you know, like you said, it's nice to maintain the trees that are there. You know, I don't know, is there going to be like a little a pre-survey before there's clearing and grading to kind of mark the healthy trees and the tall ones before, you know, when you mark this path through the woods?
Yeah,
you know,
we would stake it out and then ribbon the trees that we want to keep.
okay, because there's a pine off to the left towards 15, and there's a big aspen, and those would create a nice, you know, entry point into that path. I do like the gates, the first set of gates that you chose, the cast irons versus a bollard. You know, there's really, both neighbors, we really like to see, you know, evergreens. So those blue spruces, you know, you mentioned one side, is it possible to line the path both sides, keeping, you know, so it could still accommodate a fire truck, to make it look like a park, you know, like a park entrance, conforming with the comprehensive plan. You know, it does connect the neighborhoods nicely. You'll see people using it daily, I'm sure. And then my other question would be this utilities access near 31 Bergen Woods. Does that necessarily have to be cut during this development phase, or can you guys leave a stub in this access and leave the mature trees that are there? And you know, because right now that middle parcel, the lands of Rio and Anderson, you know, we're told that there's no plan to build, but you know, we've seen the potential for development going on. It's just a question, you know, I guess it's going to be turned over to the town.
Roger, I can answer that. It's Chuck. In talking with the Pure Waters Department, they requested that stub be brought right to the property line. It's a standard request that they make on a lot of subdivisions, so that at some point in the future, if that sewer line were to be pushed somewhere else, you know, it doesn't fall upon, you know, a new potential developer to kind of go in and redevelop, you know, an existing parcel. So it's a common thing, whether that stub ends at the end of Bergen Woods or it, you know, pushes a little bit further to the east. This was just the design that the Pure Waters had asked for and the number of manholes that they asked for as well.
Chuck, we had to do the same thing here, going to the east to the Route 9 property. That was one of the big changes that we had to go back and forth on.
Right.
was bringing it up the hill as well. And that's, we don't know if that line would ever get used either if they developed up top, because there is a sewer line even on Route 9, but that was still something that they required that we bring it to the property line. So.
And Roger, I know in prior meetings, we had talked about maintaining the wetlands via some signage. Is there some kind of stockade fencing or signage that's going to be delineating those wetlands, or deed restrictions from cutting? Or
there is, yeah, and there's signage that goes along with that as well.
Okay.
It's on the plan.
No,
Sorry.
Sorry, I commend you for maintaining such the wetlands and the buffers between the new neighborhood and the existing neighborhood. That's really, I think it's going to have a nice look to it. And then, is there? I know we're asking for a lot of things. We just want to get done right. As far as the evergreens, can they also line that sewer access easement near 31 Bergen Woods Drive, or can trees be planted back after they're cut? Or I know you need probably a minimum width to access it. I don't know.
Yeah.
One of the things, if I can jump in, Roger.
Yes, Ben.
Chris, one of the things, and I would ask the board to consider this, in numerous other projects I've done when we're dealing with neighbors and visual concerns, we have found in the past that it is helpful is the board considers conditions that we assign a number of trees, but we call them for field location. And so that way, once we've cleared everything, it's much easier then for the landscaping contractor to actually walk the property with the neighbors and field locate those trees in a manner that is going to be the best at screening the houses. So with the conditions on the ground as they are today, it's very, very difficult for us to say we're going to put a tree in this exact spot and know what the visual effect is going to be once we've cleared. So if I could just offer that as something for the board's consideration, and I think Chris, both you and Jeff would benefit from that process.
Thanks, Ben.
Chuck, what do you think? And he's also asked a question about a particular easement.
Yeah, the easements, the sewer easements, Pure Waters Department doesn't want anything planted in their easements for obvious reasons, especially trees. If the easements are not to be, if you're not running an active sewer line through there, then you can leave the easement as it is and not disturb it until such time as, the town wants to come through and execute and exercise the right to, put a new line in that easement. So I would say, typically Pure Waters Department, their engineers just don't want anything in their easements for obvious reasons. In terms of the field location of trees, I agree 100%. I think it's a great way to allow the developer to work hand in hand with the adjacent neighbors, because when you get into a field condition and, they start clearing, certain areas for certain development, you may find holes in the screening or holes in the existing shrubbery where a new tree could be placed that maybe you don't really see right now on the plans. And certainly if the applicant's willing to do that, we would ask Roger to then agree to say we'll put in a dozen trees along that property line, but let's locate them once we clear that right away for the path and put them in. I think that makes a lot of sense, because that would certainly give Mr. Connery the ability to say, hey, from my side porch, I'm going to want a tree maybe in this location or slightly shifted this way or that way to give a little bit better screening for him. So I think that makes 100% sense.
Okay. And
if we're going to accomplish that, how are we going to accomplish it?
You make it a conditional approval, and the building department, when they go out before they issue the COs, would field locate those with Roger and have those on the final set of plans so that, we can enforce it that way.
Oftentimes what we see is we'll create a little hatched grid on the final plans, and there's a notation that says X number of trees to be field located, prior to first CO.
Well, are the departments going to see another set of plans? Because we're here for final review.
No, at this point, Peter, we should be all set. I mean, Roger's going to
So
have
he's talking about a final set of plans. The
yeah,
final-
Roger's going to have to submit a final set of plans for stamping for you based on any conditions tonight. And we'll make sure that, you know, those notations.
Well, he's talking about shaded areas. That's what concerned me.
Yeah, we can make sure that those notations are on there. And you know, we can certainly work with Roger on the appropriate number of trees. I think it should be a fairly significant amount.
Okay, we'll address that at the end and hopefully Sean's going to help us to articulate that. Christopher?
Still me, right? Or
yes.
I just have one final thing. I'm sorry, I went over my time. This is for the agency and with regards to the seeker review. So, you know, Mr. Connery did mention there are 3 adjacent parcels, and you know they're vacant, and each applicant has been before the board to seek approval of some form of development. They share the same engineer. Roger Keating's been design engineer, and then CGM is building out. CGM Construction's the proposed builder on this development, and the proposed developer on about 621. So my question is, with regards to the seeker rules and handbook, has there been a thought or discussion about how this impacts the neighborhoods, the cumulative impact of the build out of all 3 parcels? You know, the seeker handbook has a lot of specific literature on when you have adjoining properties that should be considered when you're considering seeker. You know, how will it affect the stormwater at each parcel? How will it affect the sewage and drainage, you know, the traffic flow, you know, because one approval will affect how the other one's laid out, you know, just how Mr. Connery said, you know, that because of our laws, you know, you have to end that cul-de-sac on the adjoining property. So of course his concern is if the middle parcel is landlocked, will that be extended, and how many homes will be added and add traffic to to that quiet street right now. So you know that's
well, okay,
that's a big question.
Yeah, okay. There's a concept, and I am an attorney, but this is not the official answer. I'm going to qualify.
I'm not an attorney, so
yeah. There's a thing called segmentation, and it says if you only take a small piece, but really it's part of a bigger action. This does not look like segmentation to me, having been through a lot of that. But I'm going to turn it over either to Chuck or the applicant's engineer, or to our attorney, or Kathleen, our attorney. I don't know who wants to try to address that.
Peter, I'll jump in first. What's interesting is, yeah, segmentation occurs when you have the potentially same property owner developing their parcel in different ways over a span of a period of time without kind of filing a master plan. In this case, you don't have the same property owners developing all 3 parcels. You may have the same, you know, home builder, but they're just the ones building the houses. They're not the actual developers. So, you know, in the sense of seeker, and certainly Kathy can jump in if she wants, but this doesn't fall into the realm of seeker segmentation. If we had a very large piece of land, you know, for instance, that was then being broken up into multiple parcels and then developed piecemeal a little bit here, a little bit there over time, that certainly might fall into the category of seeker segmentation. Also, this whole entire area of town was studied under a GEIS, a generic environmental impact statement. It's the Bout Road GEIS. That cumulative study looked at this entire part of town, including all these parcels, and basically did a cumulative impact analysis on how much growth the area could take, what type of growth, you know, should occur in what areas, and what the potential impacts of that growth should be. And then it assessed basically impact fees and impact mitigation strategies on, you know, developers. And certainly this developer is required to pay an impact fee as part of the Bout area GEIS. And I'm not exactly sure what that amount was, but it's fairly significant. Ben probably got that assessment from the planning department already. So what that does is that helps offset, you know, local roads. Usually it goes to sewer infrastructure, things like that. So from a seeker standpoint, the area has been fairly extensively studied. It doesn't always go down to the micro level, but again, you know, these parcels right now are required to go through their own individual seeker review process as they come online for development. And that's exactly what we've done. I don't know if Kathy wants to add to that, but that's kind of a quick overview of seeker.
No, I have nothing to add. I don't think it was a quick overview. I think it was thorough.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. Christopher, anything else?
No, I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Oh, I gotta go through.
Can I
this.
ask one question? I'm just curious, is there anything the board can do for us to assure us that at the end of the new cul-de-sac, at the end of Weatherby that they're adding, is there any way that the board can assure us that that will only be a fire department access in the future? I mean, I understand that you could run utilities through it to continue the utilities on, which is fine, but we're trying to prevent any traffic from coming back through.
I
Is there
think
anything the board can do?
like I said before, Pete, I mean, this isn't going to be built to town road standards, so it's not going to be in a condition to be taken over for traffic. It's going to be built to a standard to accommodate emergency traffic in the case of an emergency, but primarily pedestrian path.
So we don't have to worry about that
cul-de-sac.
cul-de-sac being opened at any point down the end.
Oh, I'm sorry, the cul-de-sac piece.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, the cul-de-sac piece.
I'm sorry.
Oh, Steve's not on. I think Steve Saucy was trying to talk.
He's next.
Oh, I'm sorry, but I guess that's what I'm looking for. Steve was wondering the same type of thing. He lives right next to me, but Steve's got to unmute himself, I think there.
Oh, okay, we'll call him up. We'll talk about it. I mean, that's what the board does. Can you unmute Steve Sosi?
He should be able to, but let me prompt him.
Okay. Can't hear you yet, Steve.
Okay.
Yes, we hear you.
I'm glad that you led off with Jeff because Jeff is much more organized than me, but my concerns were exactly the same as Jeff's. I looked at the plans, and as I recall, what occurred back in, I think it was 2018, as Jeff said, that originally there was going to be a road that took care of those two properties and emptied them onto Bott, and that the only thing we would have to face on Weatherby Court for a change was a cumulative effect of these houses that are coming, that are going to be built in this, that's seeking approval today. And that the only thing that was going to be connecting this extension of Weatherby Court to the other side over on those two parcels where Bott connects to them was that there might be some type of emergency access, but it wouldn't be traffic. Well, now it looks like that wasn't done. And I thought that's what was the concept that we talked about. And I believe there was a lot of support of the board. Yes, that's what would be done. And then we find out that it hasn't been done. And the reason being that I'm hearing is that there's a dispute between the one parcel that's been approved and the owner of the other parcel. Well, I agree with Jeff. Down the road, 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, whatever it is, somebody comes in and wants to develop that last remaining parcel. And what's going to happen? We're going to get the effect of that on our street. And we're going to have a lot more cars on our streets, even more so than what we have now. And it's going to be a busy street. And I don't think that that's fair and equitable when we thought we had an agreement as to how it was going to work. And, were we asleep at the switch? Should we have been at the last meeting to say, hey, when you approved the other development, hey, you didn't do what we said. You didn't leave an empty lot so that they could put another road in. It didn't happen. So, and the only reason I hear is that, well, there's a dispute going on. Well, I don't want to question motives for those types of things, but that seems to be convenient because now it's going to be dumped on us. And I don't like that. I don't see why we should have to have it dumped on us when the original concept was they were going to go that way to Bott Road, and what we were only going to be responsible for accepting the traffic from this parcel at the end of Weatherby Court. It would wind up becoming a busy street. This would be a street that you significantly change the cumulative effect of that traffic. And you can tell us that, well, we don't think the parcel will be developed, but at least, as Jeff asked, is there anything you can do to assure us that that road will not be extended out? I can accept that you got to run utilities and all that. That's fine. But what can you do to assure us that that won't occur? Because we thought we had a plan and then it didn't happen. So those are my comments. I'm not happy about it.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure we'll discuss that when we
can't hear.
turn it over to the board. Thank you.
Hold on. I can't hear anything from anybody.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now, Peter.
Yeah. All I said was, thank you for your comments. I'm sure we're going to discuss that when we start discussing the project among the board.
But you're at, let me just ask you this. It seems to me you're at the final stage where it's a matter of, yeah, we're going to make this a little bit here and a little bit there, and bingo, it's a done deal.
Well, your question was asked already by Jeff, and we had our professional help here address it, and the board's going to have to weigh and maybe ask more questions. So we already had this is not the stage at which we, just deliberate it, but we will deliberate it. And I assume that'll be part of the deliberation. So we already had the staff ask it. So we'll ask more questions about it at the end when the board starts talking.
Well, I'd ask you to revisit what was discussed in 2018.
Okay.
We had a concept. And then I guess we were asleep at the switch because we should have looked at the last meeting and say, hey, everything changed, and it doesn't look like it did. It looked like it changed significantly. And we were not made aware of that,
Okay, you've made the point repeatedly, and I don't specifically recall off the top of my head. We'll try to explore that when we get into our deliberation.
Okay.
Thank you. Anthony Benjamin. Can you unmute Mr. Benjamin? Maybe you can unmute yourself. I don't know.
He should be able to unmute himself, but I don't.
I see. Where's the mute? Can you explain where the mute button is?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Great. My name is Dr. Anthony Benjamin. I own and reside at 47 Dutch Meadow Drive. The first two houses in proposal will be directly behind us. Our lot is next to Forever Wild, which is essentially a wetland, and our lot is on wetland and probably shouldn't have been built 20 years ago. With any precipitation or our neighbors' sprinklers, we have standing water on our yard. We had to mitigate this problem with drainage pipes in our backyard. We have reduced this standing water problem, but not stop it.
Sir, I'm gonna ask him to put the map up so we can see where you live.
Sure.
And then please tell it, you can go. I'm asking Sean to put the map up.
Building behind us is a disaster. We want to know, how are you going to guarantee you don't make our problem worse? We understand that we live in a suburb and we are not totally against the project, but we do have pre-existing drainage issues, and this project has a potential to swamp us.
Okay, can I ask you your address again? And I'm going to ask Sean.
47 Dutch Meadows.
I'm just going to bring up something because I don't think we have it in that detail on the map.
I think he borders the other cul-de-sac.
Yeah, it was on the secondary map.
Right.
Next. No.
I believe he's behind lot 1. Sean.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it. He's to the west of the project site.
He's across from Copenhagen Court on Dutch Meadows Drive,
Yeah.
near the corner of Nottingham.
Right.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm working on a small screen here.
Sure.
Right at the top of the map, Sean. If you go to the top where Nottingham Way, where the stub comes in from Nottingham Way, he's just to the west of that.
He's 49. Did he say he was 47?
47.
Yeah,
Okay,
right there.
okay, good. That's a good picture. Sir, do you have more to say?
No, not at this time. I wanted the question to be answered. How are you going to make sure that our problem doesn't get worse?
Yeah, okay. That's a stormwater question, and I'll ask the applicant to address it first, and then I will ask our engineer if he has anything to add to that. And Roger, can you talk about how SWIP and stormwater works? What the law requires and what the engineering is designed to accomplish?
Sure thing, Mr. Chairman. The project disturbs over an acre of land. So in New York State, anytime you have a project that disturbs over an acre of land, we're required to do what's called a stormwater pollution prevention plan. As part of that process, we're required to capture and treat our stormwater, as well as attenuate the runoff. So basically what that means is that a stormwater model is developed that looks at the existing conditions and how much water leaves a project site. And then under post-development conditions, we model that to go through stormwater management practices such that we can capture and treat the water, but then also release it slowly so that we do not exceed the pre-development runoff rates from a project site. So that's a general description of what the requirements are. But this project does disturb over an acre, so we are subject to the New York State DEC stormwater management permit. Chuck, is there anything you'd like to offer on in addition to that?
Yeah, that's a pretty good overview, Roger. So basically what it means really in layman's terms is any stormwater that's developed from this site has to be mitigated on this site. It's not permitted to run off this site. And as you can see by the plan here, to help take care of and manage the stormwater on site, various stormwater treatment facilities are posted throughout the site, are really developed throughout the site. And there's one right here at the end of Ridgeview Court, which is really actually almost behind, the gentleman's lot at number 47. And really what that stormwater management area will do will be to accumulate any stormwater that runs off Ridgeview Court, the new Ridgeview Court, as well as the adjoining parcels nearby, and then manage it and effectively run it back into the ground. That's what the New York State DEC is now requiring, is that, you can't, in the old days, you could just let your stormwater run, down a ravine, down a swale, out across somebody else's property. And, that's how it was. Nowadays, DEC highly regulates, stormwater management on all these lots, and especially the new lots. So even during construction, the applicants will be required to put stormwater management features on the site while they're doing grading and excavating and everything else. So these sites are very highly regulated now in terms of how the stormwater is managed. You can't just let it run back into the wetlands. You really have to manage it. And the preferred strategy now by DEC is to basically create stormwater management structures that allow any stormwater that comes down to basically go back into the ground. That's how the state is requiring it. And that's really how this application is going to have to follow. So stormwater will be certainly looked at very closely. And I should say the town has a very active and a very good stormwater management department that go out and inspect these sites probably on a daily basis, certainly during construction. So
can we get some more specifics, especially how does the water flow near this gentleman's house? And you talked about a stormwater basin or something. Can you show us precisely where that is? And
yeah, Roger,
describe what's going on around his house now. And
yeah, sure thing. Yeah. So the topography in that area, Mr. Chairman, kind of runs, left to right over on that side of the project site.
So it runs off of 47 onto the two houses that are behind him?
It looks like some of that would run that, under existing conditions in that way.
Right.
When we build the road, we're going to end up, intercepting a lot of that runoff that currently goes in that direction. And then that gets redirected to the parcel that's below lot 2 where you can see there's a stormwater management area. We have a SWIP ID number of 80, or is it
Okay.
B2? Right there, Mr. Chairman. Yep. And so a lot of that water, again, when we put the road in there, we'll begin to cut that runoff, and then redirect it to that practice. And then that in turn is where the stormwater management takes place. And then is any excess water, under a larger storm event, there's controls in place there to then release it slowly, and that's released, towards the central portion of the project site. So you'll notice there's a culvert there that's sending it, into the center portion of this project site. So it's not sending it directly at 47 or that corner of the project.
If I understand it correctly, it looks like it's designed to divert it away from 47 for sure.
Yeah, we're bringing it into the central portion of our project site.
Okay. Do you have any other questions, sir?
I mean, we already have existing problems with water, in that back yard of ours. Like we had to put in pipes. And my question, was that we already have problems that we already own wetlands, and our concern is building property, right behind us. I see what you're saying in terms of bringing it down, but I do foresee that there's going to be still a problem with water being in our backyard. I mean,
well, I'm going to respond to the question as I understand it, as I understand the answer. The state law requires them to not make anything worse. You're a doctor, do no harm. Right. That's rule number one. In some cases, it can help, even help. And the engineering has to follow that premise. And to a layperson, I'm a lawyer, I'm not an engineer, but it looks like the water flows off of your property anyway, generally, and they're diverting it in such a way that I'm convinced by what the engineers are saying it's not going to make it any worse. And I actually would ask them to confirm their professional opinion on that, and also opine on whether it might potentially make it better. They don't have an obligation to, remediate your problem.
Oh, of course not. I understand that. I understand that.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, you're right. And then that's the premise behind the New York State DEC Stormwater Management Program, right? Is to, capture and treat, provide water quality, and then also runoff reduction volume, benefits, as well as attenuation, meaning holding it back, slowing it down. And we can't do or exceed what leaves our site from an existing condition. So we have to, match or reduce those offsite flows.
Do you have any opinion whether there's any chance of reduction for 47?
Just based upon what I'm looking at, with the way the topography is and such, I think that we are going to end up cutting off some of that water that went to that portion of the site, and then have it redirected away from his property. Yes.
Yeah, Peter, I was just going to say, I would concur with what Roger just said. We haven't obviously studied, the parcel in question, at 47. We just don't know where all that water potentially comes from. It could come from other sources, that we just can't see on this map, but that would contribute to, the gentleman's, wet backyard. But certainly I would agree with what Roger said, is that when lots 1 and 2 that we're looking at here are developed, they will certainly, the way they're going to be graded, potentially cut off any additional water coming from this project site, to his site. So.
Okay, that's a fairly thorough answer, sir. Do you have any other questions?
Okay.
You're all set? Okay, thank you.
Wait, one question. Who do we direct our complaints to if we have issues during construction, if we have issues?
Sean, do you want to address that?
Yeah, certainly anytime you experience issues, after a project like this, let our office know, or let the Department of Public Works know. If there's a stormwater issue, or like the chairman said, we've got an excellent stormwater team at the town. We'll take a look and find out what's going on. But our goal is obviously not to get there, and certainly not make preserve the existing situation. But I think as Roger and Chuck noted, I think there's some there's some potential here with the stormwater practices to actually redirect some of that runoff that you're currently experiencing. So certainly no worse. Hopefully, a noticed improvement. But if you continue to have some problems, let us know so we can make sure that there's not something wrong with the stormwater system here that we've missed. But I don't expect that to happen.
What I would like is somebody to come out before and then somebody come out, during, so that we have some kind of, basis in terms of what's going on.
Yeah, there'll be
is that possible?
Yeah, I'm sorry. There'll be a pre-construction meeting that happens with our stormwater folks to take a look at what the existing conditions are. And so that way they know that we're not creating a situation that's going to be any worse. And then they'll monitor that throughout construction. And then prior to, as lots are completed and prior to the town accepting the road and the work here in the stormwater area, we have to have some confidence through the engineers that everything is done correctly. So there are going to be a series of checks and balances along the way.
And just so you know, sir, Chuck Voss, he's one of the fellows responding. He's with an outside engineering firm hired by the town to ensure that the design of this, he's an engineer. His firm is an engineering check on whether the applicant designs it in conformance with the specs and plans and also in conformance with New York state law. So we have our own engineers, the hired engineer and also in-house engineering. And we have stormwater experts inside to keep an eye on the developer as the thing goes forward.
There's a tremendous amount of observation on any project, from the planning department on site plan to stormwater to the water and the sewer infrastructure that's installed. I think I think you should be assured that we'll monitor this to not cause any negative conditions.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Brian Bowery.
Thank you. You guys can hear me okay?
Yes.
Appreciate it. Jeff Connery, Chris Guzda, Steve Stousey addressed much of it. They talked some about the cul-de-sac. I'm a little bit confused on where we stand on that. I live at 23 Bergen Woods Drive. I've shared some drone footage of the water behind Bergen Woods. The lands of Rio and Jones, while that may be in flux, they are related. And landlocking them will put that land back in play. And I guess along with Dr. Avery's question, my question is very simple. Assuming, and I appreciate, like the rest of you guys talked about how hard Ben and Roger have worked with the neighbors, including us. Along with Dr. Benjamin's question, assuming that this gets stamped, everybody's approval's on it, the stormwater people, how are we sure when this is done and everybody walks away and there's an issue that we're not going to be caught fixing the problem like we've already had to do along Bergen Woods Drive to deal with some of the water? I'm not convinced, and I'm not an engineer, but I have experience with development and with water, that we don't have groundwater back here.
I don't know about anybody else, but I can't hear anymore.
I can't either.
Yeah, Brian, your volume went down.
All right, I turned it way up. I don't know if that makes a difference. The question I have is, how do we know that we don't have a groundwater situation back here? Because I've sent drone video back here in early December. There's a lot of water back here. And if, once it's been stamped and approved and everybody's built the houses and gone their way, where do we go? Who do we go to? Everybody's been approved. There's a lot of water. And last December, I took some drone video, and I've shipped it to Sean and a couple of other people in the town and not heard anything back. There's a ton of water. It's wet 12 months a year. And what I'm concerned about is we build beautiful homes and everybody's done things the way they're supposed to do. and we still have a problem like Dr. Avery spoke of.
I think we just did our best trying to answer that question, which is we're going to comply with all the laws and we're going to comply with all the engineering design techniques to conform with the law. I'm not really sure. It's hard for me to prove a negative. I'm not sure.
Peter, I can add a little bit too, because I've seen Mr. Bowery's videos. And we specifically took a hard look at what was happening behind Bergen Woods, back when the CGM parcel included, potential development in the back there, where all that wetlands is. And one of the things that we concluded was that, years ago, decades ago, when the Bergen Woods subdivision was designed and put in, the stormwater management system and the stormwater management laws, frankly, at the time were far less lax, or far more lax, I should say, and far less stringent. And so when that subdivision was put in, where most of these folks live now, it was put in with undersized stormwater management practices. The drain pipes were undersized, the storm grates were undersized, and for whatever reason, that subdivision did not look at upstream cumulative impacts for stormwater. And that's just how the laws were written at the time. I think, since that, 2 or 3 decades when that subdivision was originally conceived and put in, the DEC has gotten much more active in terms of stormwater management, and as they should, because it does create a lot of cumulative impacts, as Mr. Bowery was suggesting. And certainly, I think we all agree there's a wet problem behind, the whole Bergen Woods, Drive area. We were hoping that the prior project, had it included development in the back, the CGM parcel, Lands of Rio, would have given the town the opportunity to go in and actually have the developer do something about it under the current new laws. That parcel is not part of this project, for good or for bad. But what we can say is, as Peter was alluding to, that this new project now, the Ridgeview project, as we're calling it, will certainly conform to all new stormwater management practices and best engineering techniques. And I know Roger and his crew have bent over backwards. And, as Peter said, we're an independent engineer hired by the town to make sure that all their stormwater, facilities work. And one of the things we do is we actually go in and verify their modeling and their calculations. That's how detailed we get. Because we want to make sure that if the town is going to approve this, that it's going to be done correctly. So, we take an extremely hard look at it. Stormwater is just as important as sewer lines and water lines these days. And, certainly Mr. Bowery raises a great point, but, this application will not contribute, to your issue. And we're hoping that, someday if somebody looks at those Lands of Rio, they're going to be on the hook for an awfully big stormwater management, mitigation, effort. So, unfortunately, the two projects aren't the same, and this project is not going to address those issues directly. But certainly, this project's not going to contribute, anything significant as well. And if anything, it may help slow down or mitigate some of the stormwater management issues that we're seeing on the eastern end of this whole section of town. So.
I appreciate your explanation. I hope that what took place with the cul-de-sac, the change in the cul-de-sac, doesn't change the way this project goes forward, and that we're taking a serious look at this, because, as I've already pointed out, I'm not really interested in proving a negative. We've already had to put improvements into our own property because of the stormwater designs back here. It's not just stormwater, it's groundwater, and I'd be happy to send the videos and pictures to anybody who'd like to see them. And these are in December. They're not in February or March or April after a busy winter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, can we see elevations of the houses? Mr. Sassi, do you have something new to say? Can we unmute Mr. Sassi?
There we go.
Okay.
Okay. I guess I wanted to follow up again on, and then, you've already heard my comments about what I thought was going to occur. Now, my question now, though, is at what stage of the will we hear anything, or how will we find out what, if anything's been done regarding what we thought we had an agreement for, and now we find out it didn't happen. In terms of the possibility of that Weatherby Court now going into Jones's property and us having a significant number of houses coming forth on that. I mean, where are we? Is it dead in the water, or are we going to be stuck with this? That's what I want to know, because like I said, we thought we had agreement as to how it was going to play out, and then we find out it didn't.
I won't know until we have our deliberations and discuss it as a board. I can't really give you an answer, but we're going to discuss, we're heading towards discussing it right now.
Okay, well, I guess we
are up for final approval. I will say that, but we're
and I'm finding, and I guess my question is, we're up for final approval, and we find out that a significant concern we had was not addressed. Yeah, they moved the path over and all of that, but the significant concern wasn't addressed. And that's a problem for us. And, for you to give final approval when a significant concern wasn't addressed, and we spent a lot of time on this, that's disappointing.
Peter, if I will, I think you're blending two separate projects, unfortunately. I certainly agree with Mr. Sassi's comments about the CGM project, but unfortunately, that project does not have anything to do with this one at this point.
Oh, well, wait a minute. So because something wasn't taken care of before, now it doesn't have anything to do with this. And as Jeff asked, what can you do to allay our concerns? And we haven't heard anything.
Well, we haven't discussed it yet as a board. Okay, can we see elevations?
Zach's gonna pull those up, I think, right, Zach?
Trying to pull them up right now for you.
If not, you want to just hand host back to me, I have them here.
Hand host back to you.
Yep.
There it is. So if I scroll down, Pete, let me know if you want me to go slower or faster, or.
That's the smallest elevation right there.
That is the smallest one around
Yeah.
just under 1,900 square feet. Is the smallest one, and everything goes up from there.
Okay, that's one.
Can you talk about finishes and finishes as well?
There's a variety of finishes that can be done on the homes. The mixture of siding and stone or brick. The Marchands put together a building feature package that includes the different types of treatments that can be done on the facades of the houses. What we tried to do here was just give a representation of what some of them are, so you could see the variety. And then more specifically, the square footages, the bedroom sizes. And as you can see, but outside of that first one, I think maybe the first one or two, I think everything is over 2,000 square feet or significantly larger. I think this last one here is a 5-bedroom, 4.5 bath, and almost 3,900 square feet. So they do have a pretty sizable home here on the upper end of what they would be looking to construct here.
And generally speaking, part of the reason that we are working with Marchand is they have a very similar philosophy and similar business to our home building business here in Vermont. And our experience with homes of this type, I mean, we are talking homes between 600 and 1 million probably. These are all custom, semi-custom. So as far as finishes go, these are virtually always selected by the homeowner, by the client. And in my experience, we have never built homes of this type and not had high-end finishes.
Okay, any questions or discussion by the board?
Peter, the only comment I have is what we've been doing now for quite some time. No two houses with the same elevation next to one another. We need to see different colors next to one another. Other than that, I think the elevations themselves look great.
Sean and Chuck, I think we need to come up with a standard note that we can always rely on for that. Do we have language?
We can probably craft something, Peter.
Okay, but I think we should start doing it as just a standard note that the developers have to understand.
Yeah, I know Sean's developing kind of a standard resolution format that, you know, you can plug in various pieces as you guys, you know, deliberate on various projects. And
No, what I'm saying, that should be a note that's in there
Yeah.
before we even see it.
Yep.
Just so we don't have to keep having this discussion.
How is that worded again? It's no two homes identical.
Those models next to each other.
No two same models and color, correct? Is it, if I'm not
Right.
mistaken? Okay.
Yeah, the floor plans can be the same. It's the elevations that we want.
Elevate. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I understood the comment. Thank you.
But it's not both. You can't have two whites next to each other or two reds next to each other.
I understand it now. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Peter,
Yeah.
Could we go back over those price points again on those homes?
600 to $1 million, up to over $1 million. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I had thought I heard something a little while ago about devaluing people's houses, the price on their house or something. Did I hear that before?
I don't
To
know.
lower the value of their house?
They're nice looking houses. No doubt.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, let's bring this to the board discussion. Can we see a map?
Let's pull up the map.
Okay, we'll go around the room like we usually do, but we have notes here, and we'll make sure we don't miss any of the issues that have been raised. Chief Hyder, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, to the issue of the house pricing, even tract housing now in the town starts at 400,000 for 2,000 square feet. So I don't think these will affect the prices of the houses in the neighborhood. I do concur with the neighbors about one thing. It was always my understanding, and maybe I missed something, that this cul-de-sac was going to be a permanent cul-de-sac at the end of Weatherby, and it was not going to connect to another neighborhood. Now, I realize Chuck's comment is correct. Every time there's a cul-de-sac next to vacant land, it's listed as a temporary turnaround. But all I can speak is for myself. If another project comes through the horn, coming down the road, this will always be a permanent cul-de-sac to me, you know, so that it will not connect to another neighborhood. I think in that adjoining property, we had discussed possibly just the utility easement through there, but no connection to the roads. I would never be in favor of connecting Weatherby to another road going forward. Other than that, I'm happy with the design.
Okay, I don't have a visual of the whole area, and I don't know if Sean has any mapping that can show us that with all the adjacent lots and also the Jones property.
Pull that up.
I don't know if anybody, other people may have visuals in their minds, but I remember all the other projects, but
Peter, I tend to, if I recall correctly, I think what the chief said is correct. They weren't going to have anything connected to that. And it was going to end right there at the end of Weatherby there.
Yeah, I thought our last meeting with the neighbors, it was a happy meeting at the end.
That's how I remember it also. But
Okay.
Other than that,
well, what's that going to do? See, I don't have as clear of a recollection, and I'm not saying you're wrong. My memory's probably not as good as yours. What are the other board members? See, it impacts how it fit in with the other area. And if I think there was a reason why we were convinced that would never happen. I guess that's what Craig, do you remember, or Susan, or?
I don't, and I'm probably not. I don't.
Okay, that's a good. Okay, is that the spot right there?
And I don't remember either, Peter.
Okay, go towards Bout Road and let's go to the property that's going that way. You can't just drag it? Oh, okay, I guess. Yeah. Okay, where's the Jones property? Okay, has that subdivision been approved already?
This right here is the CGM property.
Okay, what's going on there?
That's the one where they did the 7 lot, right? Sean, Monique?
Yeah, that's correct. So the parcel that you see there is the CGM piece.
What's the remaining part? Okay,
and that's the lands of Rio.
And this is the lands of Rio.
That's the
645 out. Yep.
Okay, how does the Jones property? how are they going to get access? How is Rio going to get access? And I'm saying this only because I'm trying to remember what happened in relation to the Jones property.
I believe they have right to refusal on one of the lots here. Sean was a part of this discussion. I don't know if Sean's available anymore, but I think they have right to refusal for one of the lots that gets you access to this parcel.
That is correct, Zach. There's
correct.
there's a parcel there that they have right to refusal on, so that they can still get access there.
And they can get a road through that. They can get a road through there. Right?
Yeah, because it's an 80-foot road, or it's an 80-foot wide lot line, you know, that you need to have. And then your right of way width, I believe, is 60 feet here. So there's enough width there to build the road, if you had to build a road there.
Why didn't they just reserve some kind of right or buy the lot? So they would be leaving themselves landlocked, right?
They could buy the lot. You're absolutely right, Mr. Chairman. That's the whole right of first refusal on it.
Right. Okay. Okay. That's not a rock solid mechanism, but they'll be creating their own hardship in a sense if they don't do it.
If they don't do it.
Hey, Zach, can you throw, is any of this land in this area New York State wetlands? I know the GIS will show that.
Yeah, Craig, a lot of that back parcel is wetlands.
I have New York State. I don't know if it's going to show me. This is on our Colonie GIS. This is on our website. I don't know how accurate this is going to show me. This is the best that I have at home. It doesn't show me the the federal. It only shows
No,
me.
it doesn't show federal, but it is pretty accurate for the New York State. So, okay. All right. I was just curious.
Okay. Okay. They've made provision. We have made provision in that other those other subdivisions. So I have no objection if we can figure out a way to seal off that cul-de-sac, legally seal it off. Can we get a picture of the cul-de-sac again?
Yep, let me just jump off of that.
Roger, is it possible to do a hammerhead there?
No, you wouldn't.
It's more the legal constraints than the physical.
You would do more of just the cul-de-sac. Just
Can we get close up?
That's the town standard. You know, they don't typically do hammerheads.
Yeah,
you know,
DPW asked for the basically the turnaround, the round cul-de-sac.
Yeah, I
Gotta be able to snow plow in there.
Right.
It's not the physical, it's the legal. It's what we do legally down there. So can we get a close up?
I don't know that the planning board has the authority to do that. I think that would have to go through the town attorney's office, because that's a town road cul-de-sac to put whatever they're going to put in place to cut that off. I don't think the planning board can do that. They can say their preference, but I just don't see how the planning board can do that.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you do that, you know, because of, you know, what it means for maybe the other properties next door, like everybody's saying. Obviously, if the Rios were to come in with a plan and they decided not to go out to bought, they'd have to come back before this board for that review anyways, at that point.
Well, can we get a close up of the cul-de-sac, please?
Yeah, I'm trying.
Oh, sorry, Zach.
It's all good.
It's not always easy on these Zoom meetings to get that thing to zoom in like that.
Staff's doing a good job. Staff,
it's
amazing that we can get this done.
Let's see how I can move this here.
Zach, if you want me to be host again, I have the PDF here.
There you go. Go ahead. I was moving it.
All right, you just got to click on me and say make host.
Make you host?
Yeah, well, I don't know if you need to actually. I think here we go.
I can make you host. Changing host.
Yeah. So you should be able to see this, right?
Okay, can I ask a couple questions? 28 and 29, which are the two last houses. Their front lot line is in the middle of the cul-de-sac. Is that right? Or not the direct middle, but it cuts off the ends of the cul-de-sacs. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the way those will work is you have the temporary line, Mr. Chairman, as it, you know, would be the dash line that would protrude into the lots. And then if the road was ever extended, those areas are removed, and then it falls back to the dark line. So when Weatherby Court is surrendered, from a temporary cul-de-sac perspective, essentially the lot across the street there from 15, that land then could revert back to that lot, because that temporary cul-de-sac wouldn't be temporary anymore. It'd just be part of the right of way. And that's just the way the town sets these cul-de-sacs up.
Well, Kathleen, I guess I'm looking for solutions, not, you know what I'm saying? I was having an idea of conveying the final strip of land to somebody, or putting some kind of restriction on it to sort of put a roadblock into the other lot. And I don't know if you can help me come up with a legal construct to do that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who you would convey it to, because what are you thinking of? One of the lot owners, convey it to one of the lot owners?
Or put a some kind of covenant on it for the benefit of the whole subdivision.
If you had a homeowners association, you could do that, I think, but.
Well, you can have you can also have deed restrictions.
I almost like the idea of kind of where Roger was headed, and what kind of Kathy was saying is, instead of showing the road, property lines right away going right to the parcel boundary, is maybe shorten that up by 10 feet and then give that last little stub to either 29 or 28 Weatherby. And then you are in effect creating a dead end cul-de-sac.
Well, I mean, that's what I was thinking, but I'm not sure if that violates the town code. And
I don't know. The town attorney's office might want to look at that.
Kathleen has.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know either. That would be a question for the town attorney's office.
Well, I'm trying to think if we can do some kind of contingent approval tonight. And I'm not sure how to exactly construct that. And I know we've been here a long time. In other words, do it subject to the approval of the town attorney. And if not, we got to come back to the drawing board. I'm not sure the most efficient way to do that.
That would mean we wouldn't, I'm trying to think whether that would mean we have a final approval. You want to do a final contingent approval on going to the town attorney's office to see if we can close off the road?
Right. So we do close off the road. Well, there's still the question of, why did we lose that map?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Even if you close off the road, somebody owns that strip of property. Okay. Either it's the adjacent homeowners, or you put a restrictive easement on it I think you could put a restrictive easement on it for the benefit, deed restrictions. When you do subdivisions, you can say you have to build a 3,000 square foot house, and everybody in the neighborhood has to conform to that. You could also have a restriction that, the road shall not be extended, and that's to the benefit of all the neighbors.
Yeah, I was just thinking though that the town would ultimately own that land, the right of way, so.
Well, they do now. They do now.
Right. It's
that last strip that would act as a roadblock. I guess that's what I'm looking for help on.
And I guess my question is, if we're not dealing with something here that we're requesting. So at the end of the day, from an approval standpoint, if a condition can be drafted that either it is or it isn't, either the town attorney is going to say, yes, this can be restricted, or no, it can't. But either way, I don't know that would prevent us from making a decision. So if you're going to approve the project,
okay.
You follow?
Okay, you make a good point. I follow. Yeah.
Pete, I've drafted.
Because what else are you going to do?
Right, exactly.
And then in the end, Mr. Chairman, then the board is still here in the event that if anything did come down the pipe, you guys already have, expressed the concerns here that if the Rios or another applicant was to come in, they'd have to present a plan, at least what I'm reading from the board, that would have a different connection point. So.
Right, but the neighbors are asking us to permanently, block that from ever happening. And I think,
notwithstanding council's, concerns about actions like that, might I suggest that in the And the conditions, I've got 3 so far. We could add a 4th, that it's not the planning board's intent to allow for the continuation of Weatherby Court beyond the cul-de-sac at number 28 and 29. So that way it's memorialized in the decision what your intent is.
Or maybe Kathleen could even give it some stronger, to the fullest extent permitted. Yeah, go ahead, Kathleen.
Well, I mean, I think, Sean's language is adequate, because really all we can do is express our intent.
We don't know. I'm not sure we know that. We don't know if we can maybe we can legally block it.
I don't know if you can bind future boards to your action of that, but I think that you can state in the record that it's not your intent for that to happen, even though the way the plans are designed suggests that road could continue. That when you made this decision, it was not with the you did not have the desire to extend the road further.
Okay, Kathleen, why don't you think about it, and we'll let's go through the rest of the board's comments, and we'll come back to this. And if you think you need to call somebody, you can do that as well, or somebody can. Okay, Chief, are you done with your comments?
I'm done.
Okay, Lou.
Like I said, I remember it the way the chief does. And other than that, I think it's a great project the way it is.
Chip. Is Chip with us?
Chip, you're muted.
All right, we'll come back to him. Craig?
I'm good. The only, am I remembering there was a driveway issue on one of the houses on Nottingham Way that, right, Roger? Is that correct? I just want to make sure that that's taken care of.
That's been addressed. So it was the length of driveway for one of the Nottingham ones, that longer deep lot. We had ample room to move it closer so that it met the fire department's requirements.
Okay. All right. I'm good.
Thank you.
Pete?
Who's speaking?
Chip.
Hey, Chip.
Hey, would we be creating a landlocked parcel if we did cut that off?
Well, that's the people who own potential landlocked parcel also have legal rights to buy the property to give them access to the other subdivision.
That's the only thing I see that could be prevent us from doing it.
Yeah.
The parcel's already landlocked the way it's configured. You're not creating a situation.
No, they have legal right for a first refusal to the lot to unlock the land, to make sure that their access is, assured.
Yeah, and Peter, if I could just add too, there's many other parcels that surround 645 Bott Road that are in private ownership now, but the, applicant back there could, approach a different landowner for an easement or an access, directly out onto Route 9 or Bott Road or even, the adjacent, side parcels. So, when you look at that map, there's probably 9 parcels that surround it. So, the applicant has, I shouldn't say the applicant, but the property owner at 645 has options other than certainly this one and the CGM parcel as well.
Okay. Has Paul spoken?
No, not yet, Peter. When we're discussing a deed restriction, I think we'd have to establish ownership of that piece of property before we could even.
Right.
Somebody has to have the deed. So it would have to be one of the landowners. I don't see how the town would want to own that little piece of property and deed restrict it. Possibly they would, but that's a legal question.
Okay, it would have to be the 2 lots on both sides of the subdivision.
Yes, I agree with that. Even if they took half each or something like that.
Right.
That would pretty much solve the problem.
Okay, Kathleen, what do you think?
Okay, I have some language that I just drafted kind of quickly. We can work with Sean on his, but something to the effect of, it's the planning board's intent that Weatherby Court be terminated and directs staff to work with the town attorney to put that intent into effect to the extent legally possible.
Pretty good language for me.
I
Any
mean,
other?
I don't see that there's anything more we can do
Okay,
at this meeting right now.
Okay.
Kathy, are you able to email that to me so I can?
Yeah.
Mr. Sudo, can I say something?
sure.
One of the big reasons that some of the conversations myself and my neighbors had was about not trying to fight the town with closing off Weatherby in any way is because Weatherby was designed to continue on to the next area of development with sewer and water. And my explanation to the neighbors was, hey, look it, you can spend a lot of money and you can fight the town on this, but the bottom line is you take it to a court and that area is designed to continue on to the next area of development. That's what a court is going to rule on. So we have it, we're setting it up to design it like that. Now, if this situation with 621 continues where those 7 lots have been approved when originally there was technically 6 lots and one of those lots was opened for Rio to get his traffic down into there. I feel as though can the board at this point right or wrong and take this back to review from that approval and say, look it, you're going to create a landlocked situation. They owned both of those parcels and ultimately sold one to the developer, correct?
We'll look into that question. We're not going to answer that question tonight. I think the answer is probably no, but we're definitely not going to answer that question tonight about going back.
I think you're correct in the fact that making the easement and splitting it between both homeowners at the end of it for 28 and 29 to each own a parcel. So like one person can't sell and say, I'm going to sell the easement there to somebody to develop it.
Yeah, well, you know, the problem with that is they could
sell it.
They could sell it. They could sell it.
Both of them can.
But, yeah, how could we stop that though? I mean, the
You
only way
can't.
you can stop or keep this from being opened up on us is by revisiting 621 that you gave, that like we all have been saying that
Our attorney has offered a solution which says to the extent the planning board is legally permitted to do so, we have closed off access to the other property in effect.
Okay.
And if that's legal, it's going to stick. And if it's not, it may not stick. It's all we can do. We can't do things that are illegal. So we say to the extent we have the legal authority, that's what it is.
But there's no ability to go back and revisit 621.
I've never heard of it, but we can ask our attorney to look into that as well.
No, I mean, that was a plan that was approved and it went through the process and it was voted on and
I think it was accidentally missed.
court. It wasn't challenged in court. So, I mean, there's nothing more to be done. I mean, I've indicated the language that's going to be added to the resolution. I just repeated it to the board and you heard it, and it will be included in the resolution and we have to go from there.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Has everyone made their comments or any more comments from the board?
I have no additional comments.
Oh, sorry, Susan. I don't think
That's right. But I did like the architectural drawings of the house. I think they're quite lovely.
Okay, great. Chuck, can you walk us through the environmental?
Sure. The board, this was an unlisted action for purposes of seeker. The board has in their packets the seeker recommendation, and I will just open it up here quickly. I'll go through the questions in part 2 for the board. This is the impact assessment portion of the seeker review. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulation? The answer is no, or small impact may occur. Will the proposed action result in a change in the intensity of use of land, or the intensity of use or intensity of use of land, pardon me? The answer is no, or small impact may occur. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? Again, the answer is no, or small impact may occur. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that caused the establishment of a critical environmental area? Again, the answer is no, or small impact may occur. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkways? Again, the answer is no, or small impact may occur. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? Again, the answer is no, or small impact may occur. Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies, or B, public-private wastewater treatment utilities? Again, the answer is no, or small impact may occur. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? Again, the answer is no, or small impact may occur. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources? For example, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, fauna? Again, the answer is no, or small impact may occur. And lastly, will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problem? The answer is no, or small impact may occur. And lastly, will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? And the answer is no. Again, we prepared a part 3 that further explains those impacts and how the project mitigates them. And lastly, we have the negative declaration. This is a notice of determination of no significant effect on the environment. And the reasons for the determination are as follows. The lead agency has reviewed the application, site plans, project description, and all supporting documentation, and conducted such further investigation of the project and its environmental effects as the lead agency has deemed appropriate. Based on this review, the lead agency has determined that the action will have no significant effects on the environment, and therefore an environmental impact statement will not be required.
Okay, Sean, did you have a resolution that you wanted to read? I know you had different language.
Yeah. The motion to approve the secret determination, be it resolved that the project is an unlisted action and based on the EAF, based on the provided EAF, the board determines that the action will not have a significant effect on the environment and that the attached negative declaration be filed.
Do we have a motion on that resolution?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, I'll just say for the record that there are no negative votes. With respect to
I'm sorry, we on the motion?
Who made the motion?
Lou.
Okay. Who second?
Chip.
Okay, you got it?
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, with respect to the, and you, Sean, you may have to help me with this because it's been a long night. With respect to the application for final review. Oh, do I have to say that the hearing is closed?
Yes.
Okay, the hearing is closed. With respect to the application for final review, do we have a motion to approve? And then we'll have Sean help us with the conditions.
I'll make a motion, Ben.
That's Chief Hyder making the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Lou made a second. I think it was Lou.
Yep.
Sean, can you help us with the conditions?
I've got the first 3, I believe, and then I'll ask Kathy on the 4th regarding Weatherby. Motion to approve the final plan. Be it resolved that the final plan is approved with the following conditions. 1, the elevations presented in the CGM home plan sample options are the approved home elevations and filed with the Planning and Economic Development Department on November 17, 2020, and presented to the board at final plan approval with no 2 identical elevations immediately adjacent to one another. 2, the builder shall work with the neighbor to field locate trees and vegetation to provide improved screening, with the location of such trees and vegetation to be subject to final approval by the Planning and Economic Development Department. 3, the Planning and Economic Development Department shall review and approve the design, appearance, and final location of the pedestrian access gateway at the emergency access and pedestrian pathway. And number 4, Kathy, for...
Yeah, number 4, it is the planning board's intent that Weatherby Court be terminated and directs staff to work with the town attorney to put into effect its intent to the extent legally possible.
Okay, on the first one, I don't think you said no two colors can be next to each other.
I said no two identical elevations.
Nor, I don't know how to phrase it, but they also didn't want two reds next to each other or two blues next to each other, even if they were different elevations.
I'll say including color palette
Elevation and color.
and identical elevations and color. Immediately
No,
adjacent.
no, no, that can be read that you can't have two models that are blue. It's two things. It's A, you can't have two models next to each other, and B, you can't have the same colors next to each other.
And or color.
I have them. They're joined here by saying no two identical elevations and colors immediately adjacent to one another.
To me, that's ambiguous. Yeah.
Peter?
Yeah.
On the, with the 28 and 29 Weatherby, would you have to put in there that neither one of those owners could bifurcate their property so they could sell off a strip so somebody could get through?
They're not going to, there's no physical way they could do that, in my opinion.
All right.
Yeah. Sean, I'll work with you on the language, but the intent's clearly here in the thing. We'll work on the language. Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. I'll say for the record that there are no negative votes. If there's no further business before this board, we shall stand adjourned. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.